So, I read that in the future.
A lot of them was, I don't know what happened there. A lot of them
One, two, three, four, five, 6, 7. 7. We got 7. Okay. We good? Ready, Dee Dee?
Yes.
Good evening. We are going to call the regular June meeting of the Verona Zoning Board of Adjustment to order at 7:35 p.m. on June 11th, 2026. Madam Secretary, would you please read the notice of this meeting and call the roll? Oh, excuse me. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thought it was last night. Now,
the notice requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act have been satisfied with respect to this meeting of the Township of Verona Board of Adjustment, which is being held in the ballroom of the Verona Community Center located at 880 Bloomfield Avenue, Verona. Specifically, the time and date were included in the public annual meeting notice. This information, along with the meeting agenda, was posted in the municipal building at least 48 hours preceding the start time of this meeting. The agenda and meeting documents can be viewed online on the Board of Adjustment's webpage on the Township's website. Please take notice that pursuant to NJ Public Law 2025, Chapter 72, the complete text of each legal notice of the Township of Verona, including all public entities under the authority of the Township, may be obtained or viewed by the public on our official state-registered webpage, veronanj.org/legal public notices. All meetings are recorded. Instructions on how to comment will be provided at the appropriate time. Those wishing to speak during any public comment period should only provide their name and municipality. Street addresses are not required. Please be advised that should a member of the public choose to state their street address, it will not be redacted from this recording. Mr. Tully?
here.
Dr. Reese? Here. Dr. Cordes?
Here.
Mr. Ryan?
Here.
Mrs. Murphy-Braddix? Mr. Mathewson? Here. Mrs. DiBartolo? Vice Chair Weston?
Here.
Chair McGinley?
Here.
Board Attorney Massara?
Here.
Ms. Tanweer? Here. Ms. Mish? Here. And myself.
Okay, thank you. Let's start with some general information. This board deals with the issuance of variances from the Verona zoning ordinance. That ordinance establishes specific requirements for the land area in the township and regulates not only the uses permitted, but the size of the lots, setbacks required, parking, signs, conditional uses, and numerous other such regulations. An applicant is never entitled to a variance. Applicants must meet specific criteria contained in the state municipal land use law by satisfying certain legal standards of proof. The burden is on the applicants to show that they should be granted the specific relief requested. Depending on the type of variance requested, applicants will need to prove special reasons, undue hardship, a balance of benefits, and other criteria. These are legal proceedings. Public meeting notices have been published, neighbors have been notified, applicants and their representatives will provide sworn testimony and be subject to cross-examination. Any action this board takes at this meeting will be memorialized in a resolution document prepared by our legal counsel that will be reviewed and adopted typically at our next regular meeting. At that time, any variances granted will become effective. That said, we are a board that conducts its business in a fairly informal manner. Applicants are sworn in, tell us what they want to do with their property and what they are asking the board to do. Board members will question witnesses, and then members of the public may question those witnesses. At the conclusion of the testimony, members of the public may make a statement regarding the application. After closing the public portion of the application, the board will deliberate and render a decision. If anyone is here for the application for 1 Glen Road, they will not be heard this evening. And do I know when it's going to be rescheduled?
We do not have a date yet.
Okay. So if you're here for 1 Glen Road, it is not going to be heard this evening. Okay. We are on item E, approval of minutes. Board members, we have minutes from the special meeting on May 5th. These were distributed recently, and you should have had an opportunity to review them.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the Tuesday, May 5th meeting.
Thank you. Do I have a sec?
Second.
Thank you, Edith. Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I was not at the meeting, so I'm abstaining.
Okay. Good. Minutes are approved.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to excuse myself for 1 second to get my glasses. You do the resolutions, I think, without me.
Hope so.
Thank you.
Okay. Minutes from the regular meeting of May 14th. I would point out that Secretary made a small change on page 8 of 12 of those minutes. The first item, signage, has been added to the original minutes that were distributed over a week ago, 10 days.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for the Thursday, May 14th meeting.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I abstain.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, that gets us to resolutions. We had 3 resolutions. Let's start with Resolution 2026-11, 115 Linden Avenue. That was the rear 2-story addition with full attic. Make sure you're in concurrence with the restrictions and conditions that were included.
I'll make a motion to approve application 2026-11.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Not voting. I was not at that meeting.
Okay. Okay, resolution passes. Move on to Resolution 2026-12. 2026-12, 1 Clover Road. This is the short fence.
I'll make a motion to pass resolution 2026-12.
Second.
Okay, motion is second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Good there. Okay, that one passes. And the last one I have is Resolution 2026-13, 725 Bloomfield Avenue, which would be the reincarnation of the bank.
They're driving. So, right?
Correct. Allowing them to reuse the drive-in, reuse the monument, relocate it, and relocate the flagpole, which they put up without permission.
I'll make a motion to pass 26-13.
Okay,
I'll second that motion.
thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I abstain.
Okay, that takes us through resolutions. Unfinished and new business, I am going to make a chairman's prerogative call, Counselor, and we are going to reorganize this a little bit. We are going to take the extension of time requests first. We are going to move application 2026-13, 94 Elmwood Road to second, and take the continuation of application 2026-10 third. Based on my experience, I believe we can take those rather efficiently. Okay, so that said, board, first one we have is an extension of time request, 555 Bloomfield Avenue. Resolution 2024-20 was memorialized in November of 2026, approving the application to construct a Wells Fargo ATM facility that would occupy 259 square feet.
How could we have memorialized that on November 14th, 2026? We haven't gotten to that yet. I think we need a Scribner's change on that.
November 14th, 24.
24, okay.
Thank you, Kevin.
You're welcome. A lot of experience with this, John.
Everyone should have a copy of that resolution.
Mr. Chairman, my only question, and I think Dr. Reese brought it up in passing, it's been so long ago, I guess if we did not vote to approve this, we are not allowed to vote on the extension as well, is that correct?
Correct,
Okay,
because they've had site plan and variances.
right. Can we, does the secretary have a record of who voted yes or no on this?
I know I voted against this.
I
Here's
wish I
the
had.
resolution.
Yeah. The original,
The nays were,
oh, you have the,
Mr. Ryan, you were not eligible to vote,
Okay.
so you then can't vote.
okay.
Dr. Reese was absent, Ms. Murphy-Braddock was absent, Mrs. DeBartolo was absent.
She seems to remember she voted on it.
That's what the,
I know, that's what it says here, and I took a double take before, but
Okay.
I remember voting against this on Bloomfield Avenue. But
If we can't,
Whatever.
if we can't vote, are we allowed to comment on it? I guess that would be my next question.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, on the extension of it.
Yeah,
I mean, it was approved, the extension. I'm not a big fan of extensions because when we vote for a variance, you would expect that people would be anxious to get that done.
well, I agree with you, Mr. Chairman. It just seems that a lot of time has elapsed since we approved it. I think the applicant, have they, other than requesting an extension, have they provided any justification for it, do we know, or reason for it?
I know that the ATM is part of Wells Fargo,
Okay.
and I believe that there were some delays with Wells Fargo.
Okay. But they have no one here tonight to testify on their behalf, correct?
Not that I see.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, there's really a question of the law. The applicant's time for protection under Section 52 of the municipal land use law has not expired. So the site plan is still protected. That would expire November of 2026. The variances were granted in conjunction with the site plan. The only reason that the applicants have requested an extension is because the township's ordinance states that variances are good for 9 months. There is an inherent conflict between that ordinance and the statute because, again, the variances are issued in conjunction with the site plan. it's a little unusual. Normally, an applicant comes in after 2 years when the site plan protection has expired and asks for site plan protection, which then the variances would necessarily follow. Here, because we're in that window period, it's a little bit unusual. But I'm pretty certain under the law that this board certainly has the ability to grant the extension. And I think the board should consider the fact that the site plan has not yet expired. So to have the variances expire or not be extended would be quite unusual.
So it would behoove us to extend this at least to site plan to sync up with the site plan.
I think that would be the safe bet and the proper way to go. And then I think at another point, this board will have to re-examine section 55 of our local, of our ordinances to try to look at the impact. And I think here we have a practical impact that was not foreseen at the time the ordinance was drafted, to have just a 9-month approval period for a variance.
Okay. So I guess I would entertain a motion to extend, let's see, extend the time for resolution 24-20. Okay, wait. To approve resolution 2026-14, extending the time. Is that where we?
Yes.
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we need a roll call vote for that one?
We should.
Yep.
Mr. Tully?
Yes.
Dr. Cortez?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan's not eligible. Mrs. Murphy Braddix is not. Mr. Mathewson?
Yes.
Mr. Vice Chair Weston?
Yes.
Chair McGinley?
Yes. Okay, so that is extended, and we'll hope that that can be accomplished by next year. Okay. Moving to item number G3, application 2026-1394 Elmwood Road. If you'd be so kind just to stand for a second, council will swear you in, then you can sit down.
Can you please state your name and address for the record, please?
Anthony Tarrant, 94 Elmwood Road, Verona, New Jersey.
You raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, the notice is proper and the applicant can proceed.
Mr. Chairman, I will be recusing myself because I live in close proximity to Mr. Tennant. Okay.
Okay. It's not pitch perfect. We don't have to wait for him to walk all the way out of the room. Okay, Mr. Tarrant, if you'd be so kind as to tell us exactly what you need.
I'm requesting 2 variances. I'm trying to install a central air in my house, and I have a very narrow lot, and I don't meet the required minimum yard setback from where my property line is, and I also don't meet the maximum improved lot coverage.
Okay. I have to say, your packet was one of the nicest ones that we've had submitted to us. complete with explanations of what the problems are.
I have no experience doing any of this either, so that's good to hear.
Mr. Chair, can you just use your mic when you
Oh,
speak?
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
No problem.
Has the board had the opportunity to read through this entire application, including the applicant's hardship statement? For the record, your property is approximately a little more than half of the zone size, the size for the zone.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Your side yards are already non-conforming.
Yes.
And the fence is already in place?
Yes, sir, yes.
So your neighbor would not see the condensers, and they cannot be, and they're not visible from the street?
No, sir, they would be behind the fence in my backyard.
Anybody? No more questions?
I wonder if you could just help me out a little bit here and tell me or show us in which of the pictures, where will those units be placed?
Yes, ma'am.
Last.
If you look at the last picture I have in there, in that spot to the left of the deck, that's where they're going to be. That's the only spot that meets it has to be within 17 feet of structure, I believe, also. So I'd be applying for another variance if I had to put it anywhere else.
Is this the photo to which you're referring?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, it would be
Dark corner.
on the dark corner on the rocks between the fence and the deck.
Somebody asked, did you talk to their neighbors about this already?
I have. Mr. Ryan's actually my next door neighbor, and I've talked to my neighbor on the other side.
Okay. No issues from both of them? Either one of them?
No, sir.
Okay.
Are there any other questions from board members for our applicant?
So just looking at the pictures, the lot coverage was not calculated with the rock or stone coverage. Those were not on the circle. So stone counts as coverage. Anything on the ground counts as coverage. So it's probably over the lot coverage just a little more.
Except the proposed units would go on the rocks.
Right, but the rocks are
Right, so
calculated into the existing coverage.
Right.
So
Be slightly more.
units themselves, it'll be slightly more.
Anybody have a problem with that?
No.
Okay.
Currently, are you using window units,
Yes, sir.
and do they go on the side of the house?
Yes, sir. I have one on the front and one on each side.
So you would be eliminating the window units and then just consolidating it down to those condensers in the back?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so less noise on the side.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? Is there anyone from the public who would like to ask a question of this witness at this time? Seeing none. Is there anyone from the public who would like to make a statement about this application? Again, seeing none. I would move to board deliberation.
I have no issues approving this application, given the hardship from the undersized lot, particularly on the width, and where the proposed location is. I feel is the most reasonable and logical location for it. Blocks, with the fence, the house, the deck, everything, it blocks the view from the street. It'll contain the noise as well. So I'd be in favor of approving application 2026-13.
Okay.
I would have no problem with this application either. It's a pre-existing non-conforming use and a hardship.
Any other comments? Anybody feel to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve application 2026-13.
I'll second that motion.
Okay.
Mr. Tully?
Yes.
Dr. Rees?
Yes.
Dr. Cortez?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Ryan's not here. Mr. Mathewson?
Yes.
Vice Chair Weston?
Yes.
And Chair McGinley?
Yes. By my count, the motion passed. We'll have a resolution at our next meeting in July, and you'll be on your way. Thank you very much. Good luck. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, that takes care of the other two items under unfinished new business. Let's move to the continuation of application 2026-10, 257 Pompton Avenue.
I have to recuse myself.
See you in July. We'll see you in July.
Yes. I'm working as fast as I can.
Kevin's not back then. Kevin's not.
For the record, Dr. Rees is recused from this application as a resident within 200 feet, and Mr. Ryan has returned. If everybody's ready, Counselor, would you bring us up to date on where we were since the last?
Sure.
where we
So at
finished?
the last meeting, we were able to finish the testimony of the architect, and the public finished their comments, and then we rested, and I today am prepared to produce Mr. Helb, who's the engineer planner who designed the site.
Board is prepared to hear it. Everything is.
Gentlemen, you raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth? I do.
Can you state the full name and business address for the record?
Yes, James Michael Helb, H-E-L-B, reside at 43 Graphite Drive in Woodland Park, New Jersey.
Chairman and board members, I understand that Mr. Help has testified before previously, and actually on a prior application of mine, he's been recognized as an expert. Would you like me to review his qualifications, or do you recognize him as an expert?
Yeah, we recognize. License is still in good standing?
Thank you very much. Mr. Help, you're familiar with the project that we designed at 257 Pompton Avenue in Verona, is that correct?
Yes.
Can you walk the board through the design and how it's laid out?
Yes, the property is on the northeast side of Pompton Avenue, adjacent to Claridge Drive, which is an abutting property, which is a lot, not necessarily a street, as well as Vincent Place. Its access presently is off of Pompton Avenue as well as Vincent Place, and the plans that are depicted will continue to do that. We have presently 3 driveway entrances to the property. We have a driveway entrance off of Vincent Place. We also have 2 driveway entrances off of Pompton Avenue. That will be reduced by eliminating one of the driveway entrances on Pompton Avenue, and the circular driveway that was presently on the site has been eliminated with a one egress and ingress off of Pompton Avenue to service through the 16-car parking lot. The property is depicted as for a 2-story residential unit. It's for 8 single-bedroom apartments, 2 of which are affordable housing units, which goes to the fortification as to the justification of the variance as a use variance in this case. As required by the statutes, there has to be a satisfaction of a positive criteria for the board to grant the variance for the use variance, and that's done solely as special reasons, is because we are creating 2 affordable units, which is 25% of the units that are being depicted on the drawings as well as the plans. So that is one of the advantages to this application. In addition to this, there's one other variance being sought. There's a setback variance for a rear yard. Presently, it's a non-conforming setback, and it will be continually a non-conforming setback, but it will be increased closer to the requirement of 50 feet. That has been adjusted to increase the amount of setback. That is the only other variance that is requested before the board besides the site plan variance and the use variance.
And now with regard to other variances, can you describe the size of the parking spots?
Yeah, the parking spots that are depicted are 9 by 20 feet. And traditionally, the town has allowed a 9 and 20-foot parking stalls with a 2-foot overhang. The actual cars would abut the curb line and is allowed to project off the curb such that they'd still remain to be a 9 by 20. We believe it's a conforming parking spaces, although the board and the town has indicated that a variance is requested, but this traditionally is what's been followed in any parking lot design within the community.
Thank you. So the parking spots, just to be clear, the plans are 9 feet wide and they're 18 feet, but then it allows for a 2-foot overhang, correct?
That's correct.
And can you review with the board the lighting plan?
The lighting plan, we show the plan. It's going to be a traditional lighting plan that is depicted off of on-site parking lighting plan, as well as some fixtures off the building itself. These are dusk to dawn type of fixtures, minimally invasive, and they meet the requirements of not imposing an intrusion on any adjoining properties. The source of the light is not visible from the adjoining properties. They're shielded from those adjoining properties, and they are strictly to service the access for the property being utilized as an apartment use.
And I think it's clear from the plans, but can you review the vegetation and buffer surrounding the property?
There is a requirement on this application that we maintain a 15-foot buffer between this residential use and any other residential components abutting our property. Presently, it's the minimus amount of buffer between the driveway that services off of Vincent Place to the garage in the rear of this property. That driveway is going to be moved westerly
approximately 15 feet, such that there is developed a 15-foot wide buffer that's enhanced with vegetation that's shown on the landscape plan, that will provide a buffer between this use, the residential use, as well as the single-family residential use adjoining the property on the east side of the property.
And can you briefly talk about the soil control and water and erosion controls?
Yes, the soil erosion and sediment control has been approved by the Essex County, or the Hudson Essex Soil Erosion District. We do have our approval on that from the standpoint that we meet all the requirements from the standpoint of soil erosion as to the extent of disturbance on the property, and they meet all those criterias. I do want to talk about one thing from the standpoint of the DOT. As you remember, in the previous application, we were required to receive a DOT approval for ingress and egress onto this property because the property does front a state highway. We were required to go before the State Department of Transportation. On 3 separate occasions, we modified our plans to conform from the standpoint of the safety criteria that the DOT had required. It's one of the elements of the master plan, improving this use variance, that we've satisfied the safety component of this because the ingress and egress comes off of Pompton Avenue for the 16 parking spaces. We had
14 parking spaces.
14 parking spaces. Off of Pompton, there's 2 spaces off of Vincent. The spaces as depicted were required to be accessible from Pompton Avenue. We had closer to Pompton Avenue, we had 4 additional spaces that we were required to lose as a result of the NJDOT permit process. So we are now conforming with the NJDOT from the standpoint of safety, and as one of the components for the master plan that we justify as one of the positive and negative criteria.
And with regard to the 16 spaces that remain, that's above the required parking, is that correct?
Yes.
Thanks. Unless the board has any questions, I have nothing further for Mr. Helb with regard to the application.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Mr. Helm. You mentioned the prior application that actually was approved with modifications, as my memory serves me. And basically, I want to make sure I understand you correctly before I even ask the question. When you went to the state, they basically had a problem with the configuration of the parking spaces on the prior plan?
They had a difficulty with the proximity of those spaces to Pompton Avenue. They required a stacking lane, so to speak, for vehicles entering the property and vehicles leaving the property, that you would not be able to access those parking spaces that were in that area of the driveway that does not have the parking spaces now, but did have in the past. So that was a criteria that the state imposed, that we had to eliminate those 4 parking spaces.
So it's now your contention that you can't really comply with the current zoning requirements for that zone, the C2. You're looking for a use variance, am I correct?
Correct.
Okay. So basically, and your justification for the use variance, I guess, if I understood you correctly, also is that you're adding 2, I mean, the use variance to me has to have a very high bar. This is where I'll put it right out there, okay? And you're saying that the additional 2 affordable housing units would be part of your contention, that would be part of that criteria, that would take you over that threshold?
Well, it's important that for the board to grant a use variance, there has to be, besides the special reasons, there has to be other reasons that are justification for the use of this property as a residential component. Right now, it's not a residential component. It's considered to be a mixed use of office and retail. The board did grant a variance before. There were 27 spots required under the previous application.
But there was no use variance in the previous application?
Yes, there was.
There was?
We were short the parking, so we didn't meet the conditions of the conditional use.
Okay.
So we had to go to use variance, and we were short parking. The board did grant a variance for 7 spaces. Under this application, there is no variance for the number of parking spaces. We provide what's required by code. The simple fact that the affordable housing is an important component of granting the use variance, but it's not the reason for granting the variance alone. The other issues that are required by the master plan is that we meet the integrity of the master plan's goals and objectives, of which include safety. And the DOT required us to provide that provision for safety aspect for ingress and egress.
Did you ever consider going back to the planning board and ask them to consider rezoning that area in view of the opposition that you got from the state? Or did you just immediately decide to come and ignore the commercial component, is what I'm saying, of the zoning requirement, and just don't want to do a residential?
Well, the uses that are permitted within that zone presently really at one time made some sense from the standpoint. I sat on the planning board for 30 years, and we went through the deliberations with our planners at that time. And it did justify from the standpoint, we thought that it made some sense to provide some alternatives directly versus just an office use or a medical use. Medical use is very intense. There was some provisions that you could have a dance studio there in that zone. You could have a child care center in that zone. And certainly, I think as time...
All other commercial uses.
Yeah, all commercial uses that are permitted if you meet those criteria.
Right.
And certainly, in our essence, we think the residential component as a single bedroom component is minimal from the standpoint of a residential component. It does provide the affordable housing components that are necessary before the town to the state. And I think from a safety standpoint, it does meet those criteria, so we're not asking for a parking variance.
I would also add that, and I recognize I'm still under oath from the last meeting, I'd also add that it's the contention that it's at the end of a residential street, and in front of it is actually a bus stop. So it is serving residential commuters and individuals that want to get around. So,
well, with all due
regard
respect,
to
Mr. Lay, it survived as a mixed-use, I'll call it, facility for a substantial number of years before, I guess, you bought the property. From what I understand, I believe it was either a doctor or, and there were residential apartments as part of the current property, correct?
Currently, right now, it's almost configured like a three-family. I don't know the last time it was actually used as a commercial property.
Okay.
If you drive by, I would indicate that the property hasn't been properly used for many years.
So actually, from what you're almost telling me, they were in violation of the zoning.
I don't know who lived there. Some of the stuff is new, but
I'm just trying to clarify that. So you're just saying it was all.
There was a possibility.
We don't know. I'd like to know these things before I make a decision. Just with doing some fact finding here.
No, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
you don't know whether it was in violation, or how, if we don't know how it was used, we don't know whether there was a violation.
And that's, that's part of the, I guess, decision-making process here. I have walked the property a couple of times, and, it does seem to conform with your current definition, that it's just a 3 rental unit building with no commercial component in it at the moment. Is that correct?
That's how it's set up inside, that's correct.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Counselor, while this is a new application, just to clarify, Mr. Held, on your soil erosion and sediment control plan, the biobasin details are all consistent with the previous application?
Yes, the basin itself remained the same. There was less requirement from the modification of the plan for the quantity of water that had to be stored, but we left it as it was from the standpoint, it's oversized from what was previously provided and approved by the board.
So that it's an exchange, the office structure, I guess, exchanged for the additional units?
Well, the reason predominantly, I think, is the applicant has indicated that the use, there was required elimination of more spaces that just couldn't justify the use, and with the requirements in the DOT of eliminating 4 spaces, we had a 7-space variance granted before. The board would, today, if we came back to them and modified that plan, we would need 11 spaces granted. And we just in the minds of the applicant that this was a better use from the standpoint of of the utilization of parking and recognizing that there's not a lot of off-street parking in the neighborhood, and the standpoint of single-family or one-bedroom units does not require to have a lot of parking with those one-bedroom units.
And the reduction in parking would reduce the need for your bio basin? There would be less, it would be less of a strain on the bio basin by having fewer parking spaces?
Well, it did minimize the amount of impervious coverage. So from that standpoint, the building is a little bit larger than what was provided before. The parking has been reduced by, I think, maybe around 1,000 square feet, the parking impervious coverage. So from that standpoint, we left the size of the basin to accommodate both uses.
Thank you.
Mr. Help, did you talk about the negative criteria? Yeah, I believe with you, I agree with you that the positive, because of the affordable, you meet the positive criteria. But what about the negative?
Well, the negative is, as Mr. Messeri, you realize that the statute requires us to provide a criteria for the gradient neighborhood, the criteria for substantial detriment, no substantial detriment to public good. And in this case, the neighboring properties are not going to be substantially inhered by this. We are developing this property, redeveloping, it's been vacant, it's been in disrepair for many years. There's quite incidentally, there's a component of this property that's already in a single-family zone that goes up behind all the residential properties on Vincent Place, it's the Panhandle. So it's a mixed zone development property. And that standpoint, it doesn't, but the negative criteria predominantly is a safety feature. We grant the safety feature, that's a reason of satisfying the negative criteria right there. And the noise and light impact is minimal from the standpoint of what's being provided for the property. So, plus we meet the criteria with what the master plan. The master plan talks about developing alternative housing units within the community. That was one of the goals and objectives. So that certainly satisfies both the negative and positive criteria from the requirement of the board to grant the use variance.
So I think it's your contention then that our master plan, once again, is not our ordinance or zoning for that space is really not currently in compliance with our master plan.
Correct.
Okay. And why I'm bringing that up is because this board, we've continually had cases come before us where this is the contention. And just for the record, I made a comment in public comment at our last council meeting that as a member of this board, and I'm speaking personally, not for the board, I am very frustrated by continually having to reconcile differences between the master plan and our ordinances, which are deviated by about 10 to 12 years. So, I will be making a formal complaint once again to the council and to the township administration that they're just going to have to get their act together because we are running into these applications much too often. I know it's not the point. I'll shut up.
The applicant's burden here is to show positive and negative criteria. The negative criteria, as Mr. Helps just said, was two components: without substantial detriment to the public good, which he testified to, and you can take that testimony or not, and without impairment of the zone plan or the master plan and the zoning ordinance. So without interfering with the purpose of the master plan and the zoning ordinance. So it doesn't necessarily conflict with the master plan. It just has to be not, in order to justify the variance, it has to be not conflicting with the master plan. So, I just want to make sure that the board has the right standard.
But do you agree with the interpretation, though, that it does need a use variance?
Well, yeah, that's a different analysis. It needs a use variance because it's not zoned for the use that's proposed.
Okay. All right. And I will take exception to the fact that the addition of two affordable units necessarily, respectfully, counsel, I disagree. The last time I looked, the township of Verona is currently in compliance with all of the third round obligations under the affordable housing dictates, and they have a plan put forward for the fourth round, which and I believe the plan was approved by the courts and by DCA. So we don't have at the moment, we do not have a substantial affordable housing shortfall.
Affordable housing, it meets the positive criteria by definition. The case is SICA, S-I-C-A.
Okay.
You can look that up. The applicant still has the burden of proving the negative criteria. Just because the positive criteria are essentially met, that they don't need special reasons because there is an affordable housing component, then, and as Mr. Held testified to other affordable, other special reasons, the negative criteria become what I believe are the overriding factors.
Okay.
Can the board say this can be approved without substantial detriment to the public good, and does it substantially impact the zoning ordinance in a negative way or the master plan negatively, to word it another way?
Thank you. Just another question for, I guess, Mr. Held and or Mr. Aloya. Our engineering department and our environmental commission made extensive comments on your plan. Have you had an opportunity to review them? Do you accept the recommendations? Do you take exception to anything that they've written here? If you could, elaborate on that a little bit, I'd appreciate it.
I think they pointed out pretty much what's shown on the plans. We've met all the criterias. I mean,
okay.
The one statement, as well as the environmental commission indicated from the standpoint of what was one of the vegetation items, we showed a burning bush. We also showed it as an approved equal. The applicant is willing to meet with the environmental commission or the shade tree commission from the standpoint of what type of vegetation would be appropriate.
Okay.
Given the time that, depending on when the project is built, as to what vegetation might be available to be purchased to put on the property, he's willing to work with the town boards from the standpoint of providing whatever vegetation that's available and meet those criteria that are acceptable to the environmental.
Okay. Just wanted to get that on the record, because that usually comes up in many.
It's my understanding and my belief that they actually have a list of all the approved plants, and we'll certainly pick from that approved list. There'll be nothing but plants from the approved list.
So you're willing to accept that recommendation or work with you? Okay, thank you.
But in that feedback as well, and because we went through this round already, there was an approved variance, there's a change in utilization, which also, the dynamics here are changed. In those comments were also requests to discuss and clarify, which again, we talked about extensively last time, turnarounds, emergency vehicle utilization, which I think is extensively different given the purposes of this venue now. And just again, turnaround, utilization, multiple vehicles now, I think at all hours, emergency vehicle access, snowplow removal, refuse, all this stuff was all listed in the commentary back from engineering. And I don't believe we've heard anything covered in that. And now we've changed the footprint of the parking, which was a substantial part of our conversation last time, which is why the variance is approved, at least in part. And now, and I understand what was said, that parking is not, that was covered. However, utilization is part of it. And utilization ties into, now, hours are very different, correct? Because before it was an office, lighter footprint and apartments and all that other stuff. This is now a full apartment building. I would like to hear, or unless it's not appropriate, but this is part of the utilization, the emergency vehicle access component of this, the turnaround vehicle access component of this, snow removal access component of this, the refuse pickup access of this, because this parking lot is now different. And we don't have, I don't see the turnaround points that we discussed before. And the extra spaces on this we discussed before. So unless I'm missing something, that ties to the utilization. I understand it's not a parking requirement, but it ties to the utilization now.
Well, we believe certainly it's less intense from the standpoint of parking demand. And these units are not going to be, there's two parking spaces per unit, one bedroom units. Access for emergency vehicles, either on Vincent Place, Pompton Avenue, or into the parking lot, depending on what the emergency might be. We feel that there's sufficient areas that when we snow plow, the snow plow can push the snow to various open areas that will allow for utilization of those areas, because we've limited 4 parking spaces. So we have more open space for pushing the snow in the wintertime. The refuse collection that was pointed out, we're not providing dumpster collection on the property, so there's no garbage collection collected by the dumpsters, put out at the curb, because the applicant is entitled to receive the same garbage collection or refuse collection as any other property in the community. So that would be put out the curb at Vincent Place on a big tub normal collection. So there's, from the standpoint of a litany of changes, there is changes from the standpoint of the intensification. It's far less, and the parking requirements are less. It gives us more opportunities to provide for snow removal. The refuse removal, as we indicated before, will go out to Vincent Place. And emergency vehicles, depending on the emergency, has to have access off the front of the property predominantly. And that would either be through Pompton Avenue or immediately in the emergency handicap space if it's vacant, or through Vincent Place itself. So there's a lot of different opportunities depending on the type of emergency response.
I would also point out that the state also, as Mr. Wood testified, recognized that this is a less intense use than the last project. While you might find, like you said, there's more cars to get out. The previous project, that's not before you, but was approved, was I think it's 3,000 square foot office, if I recall correctly. It was yes, it was about a 3,000 square foot office with 3 apartments on the top, two bedroom, 2 bath, and one bedroom, 1 bath. So counting bedrooms, you had a total of 5 bedrooms. Now you've eliminated completely a 3,000 square foot office and only added 3 more bedrooms. So you're going from a project that more likely than not, in my view, would have attracted families, kids, multiple people living in the 2 bedroom, 2 bath units, where now you have 1 bedroom units. You probably have some single people and some couples.
Are you limiting the quantity of tenants that are going to be able to occupy these spaces? Are you limiting the quantity of tenants?
Limiting the quantity of tenants?
Yeah.
Oh, I would agree with limiting to 2 tenants. Yeah, there's not going to be families of 4 or something living in these homes. Absolutely.
I do have some questions that I want to go over with. I'll start with drainage first. I know there were some conversations in the previous application where if it's a minor development or a major development, you had a chance to review our review letter dated May 21st, right? And in that review letter, we decided it is a major development. It's going to have to comply with the groundwater recharge, stormwater quality, and stormwater runoff.
Yeah, we discussed that at the last hearing. Now, I know Boswell's indicated that the difference between a minor and major development is based on the amount of disturbance. Now, traditionally, you don't measure disturbance off tract. We measure the disturbance as strictly what's on the property. So that's why we think it's a minor. Your office indicated you think it's interpreted to be other.
I brought this up, this whole conversation up to our drainage expert, and he said based on the definition of a major development in Verona code, it does not differentiate between off-site or on-site disturbance. It just says 0.5 acre or more of disturbance and you're qualified as a major development.
Well,
So
the only thing I could argue is that the soil erosion office limits the amount of disturbance is what's on the property. We got an approval from the soil erosion that we're not looking at off-site disturbance as part of the soil erosion approval that we received. So they already concurred with what we represented, that we're looking at the disturbance solely within the property itself. So there might be an inconsistency between what the state soil erosion office utilizes for its criteria versus what the ordinance is not clear.
I would bring it up that Verona's drainage regulations, they are more stringent than the state regulations. So based on that, I would still go ahead and say that would be qualified as a major development.
Well, the last application, we determined it was a minor.
It was not determined. We never approved the drainage plan.
That's the board granted without having to go through the major application.
The only testimony that I heard was that it was, I think it was, I believe one of the conditions of approval was that you have to comply with the drainage per our recommendations. And I never saw a resolution compliance submission. So it was never brought up again from our office.
It's such a minor difference between the major and minor, because there's very little disturbance. If you look at what is actually being disturbed, we have to remove the curb on Pompton Avenue. I mean, is that considered disturbance? The state's requiring us to do that. Now, has anything to do with drainage or affecting the drainage on the on-site property, which has to do with what we would consider to be the disturbance area that you have to justify satisfying that development. So we're doing what the state required, and that area shouldn't be considered for disturbance, should not be.
I would still agree that it is a major development and it would have to comply with and if it is that minimal difference in making it compliant with the minor development, are you able to propose any green areas or reduce impervious coverage so you can make like the disturbance less so you're able to make it into a minor development?
Well, again, I would argue that we meet it as a minor disturbance, because when you're looking at off-site development, which includes disturbance of the curbing, the sidewalk that has to be removed and replaced, it has no effect on the disturbance of the property itself. The state soil erosion office, as I said, indicated to you, they don't even look at that. They look what's on the site. And to take two different definitions, one's a state agency, that requires disturbance analysis, which we've done, and certainly have an ordinance that is open for interpretation. So you have a difference of interpretation. You certainly should only look what's on the property itself, not what's off the site.
Isn't that up to us to decide, and not for you to declare that we have to look at it?
I guess the board can determine it. I just don't think it makes any sense from the standpoint.
And you're entitled to your opinion, but to back up the engineer here, we often have situations, the state, and maybe council can correct me, we can't go directly against a state requirement, but if we have a more stringent requirement in certain areas in an ordinance, can that take precedence over what the state requires?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I don't think that's the issue here. I think the issue is an interpretation of what constitutes a disturbance, and therefore whether it falls into a major development definition. I don't think there's a disagreement as to that it's either a minor or a major. I think the applicant is saying it's minor, and Serpine is saying it's major. It has nothing really to do with the state requirements. Mr. Held is just suggesting that the state has, based on the state's interpretation, it's a minor. But it has nothing to do with the state regulation per se.
Okay. But to my original point, our ordinance can have stricter requirements than what the state requires, without being in conflict. And I thought the engineer made an excellent point. You keep referring to the fact that the last plan was approved, but since we never got really back to the point of you complying with some of the stipulations, because, the state, it sort of stopped when the state did not approve your plan, so it sort of really never came to the ultimate conclusion, if I can use that terminology. My correct understanding of what you're saying?
Yes,
Mr. Chairman, if I could also, Mr. Ryan just made a good point. I have to caution the board that the last approval should have no impact whatsoever on this application. What the board did, it did. The board is free to change its mind, is free to, analyze information differently than it did last time. So just, as a caution, this application has to stand on its own.
And while we're talking point of order, we approved Mr. Helb as an expert witness for engineering. Mr. Help's given some testimony tonight on professional planning. Would you like to have him approved as a professional planner also?
Yes, please.
Okay. Assume the license is still in order?
Yes, they are.
Okay. And your experience as a professional planner, you've testified previously before?
Probably 30 municipalities I've represented and went before board for site plan and planning approvals.
Okay. So does the board have any concerns about adding professional planner as approved expert witness for Mr. Help? Okay. Just wanted to get that on the record. Okay.
I could ask the engineer, did you have any other issues that you wanted to go over?
Yes, I have a couple of comments that I would like to go over. Okay. Since we're on the topic of drainage, the definition for a major development, there's a statement about no disturbance since 2004. Would you be able to provide a proof that there has been no soil disturbance since 2004? I believe this was discussed in the last meeting, and there was, that you were going to submit an OPA request to the town. Did that go anywhere, or?
I don't recall.
Okay.
We were to submit an OPA request.
Would you be willing to submit an OPA request so we can figure out if there's been anything done?
Sure.
Okay. And the garbage area that's proposed, I do see that in the last testimony you indicated that the garbage is going to be inside the building and there's going to be garbage cans that are going to be used. I do see that there's a refuse storage area that's marked on the site plan. Are you planning on enclosing that area in any way or just have it open?
Yes, they'll be enclosed.
will-
Like garbage can bins, I'll call them.
Okay, so it's just going to close. For the lighting plan, how many electrical vehicle charging stations are you proposing?
How many what?
The electric vehicle charging spaces you're proposing?
Currently one.
One. I believe you're required by code to 15%. Is that? I believe so. So that would be 3 spaces.
I don't believe there's any requirement under the code to have electrical charging stations.
Under Verona code?
I'm just telling you what I believe. I don't believe there is. If you cite to the code, if that's a requirement, I'll certainly submit to any requirement. I'm just not aware of that being a requirement.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
When I did my review, I looked into it, and by code, you're required the electric vehicle charging code, which every state has to comply with. You are supposed to have 15% of those spaces. And I was looking at the lighting plan, which does show the space. I believe there's stations that are proposed. Just wanted to clarify one thing about it.
So you're saying we need 3 charging stations, correct? You're saying we need 3 charging stations?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
And by stations, do you mean stations, or sometimes the stations have 2 charging each?
I think it's like spaces. So you have the station, and if it can serve 2 spaces, that's fine.
Great. That will certainly stipulate to that.
Okay. I think with the station and the spaces, I got confused because on the plan it says station, and it is proposed, it says wall mount electric vehicle charging station. I think that was one of my comments, that it's not proposed in the parking spaces, but it's a wall mount.
It was next to the 1 parking space.
Okay, so if
But because you're requesting more, because the town requests more, we'll certainly put more and disperse them properly.
Okay.
So they'll be in a different location than what you're seeing now.
So
It
the
won't be a
wall
wall
mounted,
mount.
it's not gonna be there anymore?
The wall mount still might be there, that might be one, but obviously there'll be others.
Okay.
At least one other.
Okay, my only question regarding the wall mount is that, would that obstruct the flow of traffic? Because if a car is parked near that station, it is blocking the driveway. At least that's what I think is happening, that the car is
Yeah.
gonna get close to the station, then it's gonna charge.
Let's put it this way, I don't think it would, but let's kill the wall mount, and it'll be at the other locations.
Okay. And if you could talk a little bit about the utilities for the building, for the gas, water, the sewer.
Well, we are going to be required, as I understand, the architect, the building's going to be sprinkled, we're going to have the fire service, be a separate fire service to the building. That has to be done by code. So depending on the number of sprinkler heads that are provided in the building and the pressure and the volume necessary, it also has to be sized, but traditionally a building this size would be either 4 to 6 inch fire service, which is independent of the water service. There is a water service now that provides water to the property. If it's not a minimum of 1 inch, it would have to be upgraded to a 1 inch service. Whatever is required by the codes, we will provide.
I would like to see the utilities are proposed on the plan. I know right now it shows the water and gas, but there's no labels with it, so it's hard to know if it's existing or proposed.
Again, that's all dependent on code, because we do not want to come out on Pompton Avenue as a major 12-inch main right underneath the sidewalk area. And what we've represented to the state through our application, where all utilities will be coming off of Vincent Place, as they do now. The water, sewer, I believe the gas as well comes off of Vincent Place and will continue to come off of Vincent Place.
So that analysis for the utilities would have to be done prior to like the engineering approval, just so.
It all has to be sized based on the
Exactly.
number of sprinkler heads that are necessary.
And also the sewer demand and the water demand would have to be taken into account. I believe it's not going to be too much because it's only 8 one-bedroom units, but still that would have to be taken into account for sizing it. I did see in the zoning denial letter that there's one 36-inch extraordinary tree that was proposed to be removed, and you would need a township council approval for that.
If the board grants the approval, I indicated last time, I'll indicate it this time, that we will work with the town and all the trees will be independently measured by the town as required and determine whether they're dead, dangerous, or dying, or whether they're alive, and then the proper replacement will be done, and all replacement trees will be planted as part of the buffer on the property. Or if there are just so many trees that need to be replaced, there is that panhandle that goes up that also, I believe, has many dead or dying trees that can be removed and new trees can be planted to make the neighborhood nicer.
And I think I would also like to voice that concern about the emergency vehicles maneuvering on the side. It seems pretty tight for if a fire truck or an ambulance or a UPS truck goes onto the side and tries to like make a turn and try to get out on Pompton Lake. It would be pretty tight. Would you be able to provide any like turning exhibits that would maybe show that it is able to maneuver into the site?
Well, when you say it's able to maneuver, what specifically? Like for instance, I was in a former life a firefighter, a volunteer firefighter for many years, and I can tell you that a firefighter coming to this building would never pull inside the building. It's way too close to the building. That's not where a fire truck would set up. A fire truck would set up on Pompton Avenue or Vincent Place.
Beyond the street.
Or possibly even on Claridge Drive and run through that area. So with regard to fire trucks, there's no way a fire truck could ever do a U-turn or anything on this property. With other trucks like UPS and whatnot, the mail is currently delivered in the back of the house. So the mailman walks up the driveway off of Vincent Place, and there's actually a mailbox, or 2 mailboxes actually, attached to the side back of the house. So it's my belief that the mail and the UPS, the Prime, the whatever, whoever's delivering will continue to deliver off Vincent Place the way it's currently being delivered, the same place that the garbage will be picked up.
We're talking about the garbage being picked up. So you have this refuge storage area. How wide is that refuge storage area? And how many cans or postcodes for this? And where on garbage day are you putting cans?
Currently, right now, the garbage is put at the end of the driveway. So although there's no real driveway that goes back the way it currently does now, the driveway goes all the way back to 3-car garage. It would be by space 15 and 16, I'll call them, off of Vincent Place. So down, if you're looking at the plans where it says New Creek Sidewalk, it'd be at the end of the sidewalk.
So so you're looking at potentially 8 garbage cans just being lined up on that little sidewalk there?
I'd be shocked if there were 8 cans. I would estimate that there would be more, 4 or 5. I can tell you that I have a family of 4 and I only put 1 can out. Because Verona, for whatever reason, has 2 garbage pickups a week, and you separate your recycling and all that other stuff. It's hard to actually find garbage sometimes to put out. They come so often.
Who puts these cans in back away?
The tenants would be responsible, either that or maintenance people, or even myself. I'll say, let's see how it works out, right? Because initially I would hope that the tenants would take out their garbage because they live there and they'll have, a little garbage can or whatever that they share with other tenants. But if that doesn't work, then we'll certainly have maintenance and landscaping people there that would do it. So
And so where are these garbage cans being stored on this?
Where it says refuse storage area, as I indicated in my testimony, the plan is to buy I'll call it a storage container where the garbage cans go in, so you're not looking at 4 or 5 garbage cans just sitting there. It's kind of unsightly no matter whose house you're at. So they go inside the little thing and you pull them out.
So I guess then again, the question is how wide is that sidewalk there?
It's about 6 feet at that location. Keep in mind, there's a buffer area between that sidewalk and the properties to the east. There's sufficient area that's necessary to, in fact, build a refuse collection area right off that sidewalk area. There's sufficient room without intruding into the buffer area.
Are any of the parking spots, are they going to be reserved for the particular units, or are they all have, anyone can park anywhere?
My plan is to have them reserved for the particular units. So this way you'll have, I'll call them marked units and marked visitor spots.
Okay, so how, you would have 1 spot per unit, basically?
Up to 2, but yeah, 1 spot per unit, and then they can get another one, and that would be the limit.
Okay, spots 15 and 16, how would they enter the building? Would they have to walk around the back of the building on the sidewalk and then go?
No, the back rear apartments actually they can do that way, because you can enter all the apartments through the front door, but the 2 back lower rear apartments have their own separate entrances in the back as well.
So you would assign spots 15 and 16 to those apartments?
Presumably as well as 14.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, while we're talking about parking, just to clarify, Sarfine was not exactly correct. The applicant was not exactly correct. Our ordinance requires EV-ready spaces, but not EV spaces. They come in incrementally. So whatever happens, I just want it to be for the record, whatever happens, obviously, there would have to be compliance, but it's not a requirement that there be immediately 3 spots.
However, there needs to be planning for those.
Needs to be 15% of the total number of parking spots have to be EV ready, and then within a certain number of years, 15% of those, I believe it is, have to be used. So it's over a 6-year period that all spots then have to be implemented.
Understood,
If I was
thank you.
constructing it, I would put them in the beginning. But I didn't write that ordinance.
It's a state, we use the state model ordinance, so you can blame the state.
Make a list. Are there any other questions of the engineer, planner for our board?
Yes, I just wanted to go over the retention basin again. How long is water to be stored in there after a storm? Like,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
with retention, how long is water to be stored into that area? Like, what is that?
It serves as a detention, not a retention basin, which means that it will infiltrate. We have provided infiltration means into the soil, as well as the excess water can leave the site through the controlled discharge. So it's certainly not envisioned that it's going to be a permanent indication that water is going to sit there 24 hours a day. It will subside depending on the intensity and duration of the storm. It's not intended that it will be retained on the site as a pond. It will be dissipated through infiltration as well as dissipation through the discharge structure.
Okay, so let's say you had like a 2-inch rainstorm or something like that, and water will just build up in here, fill, and then just stay on site and then.
There's a criteria as we developed as to the orifice that controls the rate of discharge has to be equal to or less than what was there before from that particular area. So that really controls the amount of water. Perhaps the backup, depending on a more intense storm, would provide a means that it would have to fill up. A less intense storm would be de minimis from the amount of water that is stored there. So it all depends on the intensity of the storm.
And then I see you have a proposed site triangle as you're coming down Vincent. Is there the same type of site triangle as you're coming out of this parking lot?
Yeah, we do provide a site triangle at the intersection of Pompton Avenue and Vincent. There's no requirement that there's a site triangle backing out of those two spaces off of Vincent. So we're not providing a site triangle there. There is some low vegetation as part of the buffer that won't interfere with the ingress and egress into those two parking spaces.
Okay, I guess I made a statement wrong. So coming out of the larger parking lot with 14 spaces, there's a site triangle there going on to the option. I don't see that listed. So if you're coming out of the main parking lot with 14 spots, is there a site triangle to get on and off of the lot?
No, there's no requirement at that point. We didn't provide a site triangle there because there is no vegetation that would interfere. I testified before that there's a visibility of 600 feet to the south. We anticipate that will be maintained, that you'll be able to see 600 feet to almost the intersection of Linden Avenue from the standpoint of sight distance before you leave that site. You are prohibited from making a left-hand turn. It's a right turn only. And same thing with access into the property. It's prohibited from heading southbound on Pompton Avenue, that you would be able to make a left turn into the property as well. These are some of the decisions that the DOT required us to provide.
So then anyone that's coming south on Pompton and wants to go into the parking lot would then perceivably make a left into Vincent Place and then.
Left into Vincent. I don't remember. I don't recall exactly, but I thought there was some discussion with the state as prohibiting a left-hand turn into the site on the southbound lane because of the proximity to the traffic intersection on
Franklin.
Claridge Drive.
Yeah.
Because it is very close. You wouldn't want to have queuing necessarily coming out of the southbound lane just past Vincent, or just past Pompton Avenue and Claridge Drive because of that intersection. Also because there's queuing taking place with the traffic light on the northbound traffic. So you would not have an opportunity of making a left-hand turn coming southbound. And certainly I don't think it's something that should be encouraged, and certainly the represented should be discouraged, and certainly not prohibited. I would recommend that it would be prohibited.
So then your recommendation would be for all of those cars that would be making a left into the parking lot to make a left into Vincent Place and then do a K-turn to then go back out onto Pompton.
K-turn, come back out onto Pompton and go into that direction.
And I could say I don't believe that that was what the state required. That's not my recollection, but I don't have the paperwork here with me.
Just for point of clarification, the Claridge Drive is sort of offset on the other side by Franklin Street or Avenue, I forget the exact designation. There's no prohibition to make a left turn off of Pompton onto Franklin. There's no traffic control there. I mean, this is just doesn't necessarily have anything to do directly with what you are proposing to do. But the traffic situation there is not ideal as currently, okay? And I guess my concern would be, is this project that you're proposing going to exacerbate the, the already tenuous traffic situation that exists there today?
Well, we believe it's an improvement because we're eliminating the one driveway entrance that serves as a circular turnaround on the property. There's only going to be one driveway ingress and egress, meeting the state code from the standpoint of its width and safety. Cars can be entering the property as well as leaving simultaneously. Right now, there's only one driveway curb cut that you can come out. If you're parking on the driveway, you have to wait till a car comes into the site, enters the turnaround before you can leave the site. So it's certainly a much safer operation from the standpoint of it's queuing. There's ability to queue parking or traffic on the site before it leaves the site itself.
Well, except Jim, that you are you're still putting 8 units there, okay? And and I grant the number of parking spaces. There's still, even though they're only 1 bedroom, it's quite possible that people will have 2 cars each if there's a couple going in there. And you're basically saying that the traffic is going to be even less than it would be if you had a commercial spot. If I'm not interpreting you correctly, to stop me. But if you had a commercial spot as it exists now in 3 apartments, which is what's there now, or actually if the commercial space was being used properly, you'd have a commercial space in 2 apartments there, okay, in the current configuration, okay? Yes. And so if it was a commercial space, the traffic would be going in and out, but at odd times, I would think. It would not be a continuous flow. Whereas you put 8 apartments in there with the potential. I know you're going to need a parking space variance. I believe I understand that, but you still might have more instances where traffic could queue up than what you would have under the current zoning requirement. That's just a thought.
Well, you might have opportunities early mornings for queuing up, but there's ability to queue up on site. Now that you're not prohibiting cars that are prohibited from leaving their parking spaces by the ability to queue up in this driveway before it egresses onto Pompton Avenue. So certainly, it's a much safer operation. Will there be some queuing if 2 apartments leave at the same time, 2 cars in that driveway? Yeah,
well, and there's also other houses on Vincent Place that would also be adding, if currently there, that would be adding to the queue. I mean, you're adding 8 residences, that's why I'm looking at it, plus whatever is currently in existence on either side of Vincent Place. So there may be times when people are, when you had a business there, businesses, their hours of operation don't necessarily coincide with when people commute, okay? That's the point I'm trying to make. So you might have times earlier in the morning when people are getting ready to go to work, where there might be some congestion there, and even coming back at the end of the day. Let's hope people don't, drive dangerously and, make a left turn onto Vincent Place, but you're still adding, as far as I don't agree with your conclusion that you're not adding more traffic to that intersection with this plan than would have been there under the existing configuration.
Well, the only argument is that there is presently a driveway there now. It has a 2-car garage. So yeah, but you would have cars leaving the site that's an apartment use now that services that property. there's cars that are leaving that site from those that two-car garage, where you don't have two cars that are coming out of apartments as well. So it's almost the same type of utilization of that driveway from the standpoint of.
But there's more residential units. I mean, you have to, than are in the current configuration. Even if I'm accepting the fact that there's 3 apartments there, let's forget about the commercial aspect of it, okay? There's 3 apartments there now, and I know they have two big two-car garages and the whole bit. But you still have the potential, okay, in an 8-unit residential facility to have more traffic than what you have there now. That's my opinion.
Well,
I know we don't have the traffic
You only have
still.
2 cars on Vincent Place. That's the most you're going to have. 2 cars leaving the site onto Vincent Place. Right now, you have 2 or more, depending on the garage configuration. You could have 2, 3 cars in that driveway that services those apartments. So we're not intensifying the amount of accessing onto Vincent Place from 2 parking spaces. That's all that will be there. There can't be any more than 2 spaces. 2 cars will park at that location.
If you mean for the 8 apartments that you're putting
There's
in?
still only 2 cars. With the number of apartments there, it doesn't reflect that there's only going to be 2 parking spaces. We can't have more than 2 cars on that side of the property.
And they can park on Vincent Place until the 2 to 6 restriction kicks in. If they have more than 2 cars, then they would have to park on Vincent Place if their space is occupied, or if they have visitors, okay? The visitors have to park on Vincent Place.
Well, they can't park overnight.
No, they have the 3-day exemption for that, but we won't get that far into the weeds. But, you're being a little disingenuous when you think that you're just going to have, if you're putting 8 residents there, even though you're going to have a 1-bedroom, these people are not hermits who are going to move in there. They are going to have friends, relatives that are going to be visiting, and it is going to increase the amount of traffic and parking on Vincent Place.
There's no doubt.
My interpretation.
There's no doubt that you're correct. Compared to what's used now, there'll be 8 apartments, and currently now there's arguably 2.
While we're speculating on traffic movements and safety, if the occupants of the building want to go south on Pompton Avenue, they're going to come out your main driveway. Is it potentially possible that they would make that turn out of the driveway into Claridge Drive, make a K-turn, so they would be back at the light to make the left?
I don't think that's practical. They would go into the Pilgrim Shopping Center, make that turn through the traffic light. They could do it, egress and egress through the Pilgrim Shopping Center, through a parked traffic light, and come back southbound. They wouldn't do it on Claridge Drive.
Jim, I actually agree with you on that analysis, because I did that today. The best way to do it is go through the parking lot and come back around.
And unless this board requires it, I'm actually looking at the state approval, and although I'm reading it small, it's on my phone for the record, I do not see a prohibition of a left-hand turn off of 23 into the main parking lot. And unless the board requires it, I'm not submitting that they are not allowed to do so. It is my intention that people driving up 23, I'll call it from Cedar Grove, can make a left into the parking lot, unless you or the state prohibits it.
Could you repeat that, Brian? You're saying if they're coming southbound on 23?
It's southbound, correct?
Okay, you're saying that there's no prohibition currently?
Currently, there's no prohibition, and I would request this board not put a prohibition.
Okay.
I think they should be allowed to make a left into the main parking lot.
I don't think the board can.
I don't think we could do that if you wanted to.
The state controls the road, so you can't. Put a couple of Jersey barriers right on the yellow stripe.
Well, for the record, I'm actually okay with that as well, because then otherwise the cars are just going onto Vincent Place.
I can go as far as say if that was a requirement, I wouldn't be here.
Other questions for our engineer? Hearing none, I would open the floor to the public. If you would like to ask questions of our engineer, I would ask that you would please come up to the podium. You need to state your name and your location, I guess, not necessarily your street address. And this is a time for questions. There will be an opportunity to make a statement about the application afterwards. This is simply an opportunity to ask questions of the engineer, much like the board has been doing, of the testimony that he's presented this evening.
May I ask questions of the board as well, or only of the applicant and his witness? Yes?
Yes,
Applicant.
the applicant and his
Okay.
witness.
I'm going to sit, if you don't mind. Everybody else gets to sit. I should too.
You'll need to take the microphone with you.
I don't know how to do that. Someone needs to do that. I'm not a microphone engineer. Thank you. Appreciate it. Sure. My name is Anna Fusaro. F is in Frank, U, S is in Sam, A-R-O. 10 Woodland Avenue. I'm happy for everyone to know that. I have no shame in that. So this evening, I've heard a lot more than I knew prior to this evening. I've heard some very interesting statements and comments from the applicant and his witness. And by interesting, I sometimes mean absurd. The most absurd was that
Mrs. Fusaro,
8,
we are not interested in your opinions at this particular moment. That comes at the end, when it would be really well appreciated by the board. At this point, we simply wish that you would ask questions.
Understood. I'm setting up this question. So the proposal is for 8 apartments. And those 8 apartments, the tenants within those 8 apartments will potentially share garbage cans? What experience do you have in a non-utopian world where that exists? That's my question.
Well, it's quite common in Verona. There's many apartments within Verona, having served as a municipal engineer in Verona for many years. I'm very familiar with many apartments, particularly on Pompton Avenue. There's an apartment right at the intersection of, just down the street from the Sonoma station. It has apartments there. I think there's 6 or 7 apartments in there that utilize refuse containers to put out their garbage to curb, twice a week collection.
Refuse containers are different than garbage cans.
No, the definition is garbage cans are refuse containers. Refuse containers can carry a myriad of items, but by ordinance, refuse containers is picked up by the municipality twice a week.
That answer is not sufficient for me. Thank you, though. I have another question. My understanding is that a use variance has to have a high bar. Part of that high bar includes that there would be a hardship to the applicant were you to keep the building as it is. What hardship would come to you, Mr. Aloya, if you were to keep the building as it is?
I think the engineer has testified as to the positive and negative criteria that we've met, and that's,
That's not my question.
Okay, well, that's my answer.
My question is about the hardship that would come to you were you to keep the building as it is. And your answer is that you don't have an answer to that. Am I correct?
My answer is we
Thank
met the
you.
criteria for the approval.
That's not my question. So you're refusing to answer the question, or you don't have an answer. I understand. Thank you. I have another question. One of the areas we have discussed this evening is substantial detriment to the public good. The use variance has a very high bar. The substantial detriment to the public good exists, as you will hear from many of the residents who live close by to this property. Do you have an opinion as to whether their concerns regarding the substantial detriment to the public good is important to you?
I have not yet heard them speak, so I don't know what their opinions are, but yes, their opinions and your opinion is important to me.
And is it important to you that if they vehemently object to this variance being approved, that you would withdraw that variance request?
The answer is no. My understanding through the grapevine is many people that are here today are actually against this project because it has 2 affordable units. And that actually upsets me.
Well, your being upset, with all due respect, is not the important part of this. The important part is that the people who live near what you're proposing would cause them extreme detriment. That's the important part. And my question to you is, do you feel that your detriment is more important than theirs?
What's the detriment?
They will very clearly have a statement. I have a statement that I will read, but apparently this is my time to ask you questions, not your time to ask me questions. So I'm asking you the question.
I don't understand your question because I don't know what detriment you're talking about. You're asking me like a hypothetical
I didn't
question.
ask you about a specific detriment,
That's
sir.
what I'm saying.
I asked you, is their
question.
opinion regarding their detriment important to you, or is your detriment more important to you?
I haven't heard their opinion yet, so I can't answer your question. Next question, please.
Thank you. And my next question will be when I'm ready to ask it. Thank you. So my understanding is that your prior proposal was not approved. Is that correct?
That's incorrect.
I heard it was not approved. It was approved contingent upon some issues regarding drainage being fixed.
I'll answer this, and you could weigh in if I misspeak. The prior application came before the board. We approved it with certain conditions and reviews.
Right. That's what I said.
There were other elements associated with the application that were not in purview of this board, which
Understood.
which were not approved.
Yeah. So the application was not
The
approved.
previous application also has no bearing on this application.
Understood. But it was not approved, correct? Do you agree with that? It was not. It was approved contingent upon some changes to be made.
No.
It was approved with some post-approval conditions that were never addressed.
Understood.
So it was not approved, okay?
But it was not approved.
It was approved with post-approval conditions that were not addressed because the state of New Jersey Department of Transportation.
I got all that. But it was not approved. I think this is semantics. It was not approved. I have a question about that. So my initial understanding was that it was approved. I know now that it was not approved. It was only approved with conditions which were never addressed because the state had other issues that you needed to address. I get all that. My question to you is, did you consider a proposal that did not include 8 apartments within an area where there are houses that are defined in a community and neighborhood with houses. Did you consider any other proposal other than an 8-unit apartment building?
Well, I consider I disagree with you. I think the board does too. So the first application that I put in was for a.
The board
office
does not
building,
disagree with me.
with an office building with 3 apartments,
Understood.
2-bedroom, 2-bath, 2 of
Understood.
them, and 1-bedroom, 1-bath.
Understood.
So that's different, and that was approved by the board, subject to conditions, as
Yes.
most applications are.
Yes,
The
subject
conditions
to
are like
conditions.
you have to meet the, the water requirement, you have to plant certain trees.
Which
and
you never addressed.
Because you would address that when you build the building, when you go to get your permit.
But you never
Yes.
addressed.
That's correct. Because then the state, when we went to the state.
Can you answer
there's a
my
state
question?
highway. Did I consider it? I would answer the question, yeah, I'd considered other things.
Like
Absolutely.
what?
Well, actually, when the state first changed it, one of the things that I thought of was because we had a 3-bedroom, or 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and one bedroom, 1-bath, if we could take the second floor and mirror it on the first floor. So then you would have had 4 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and 1-bedroom, 1-bath. So that was considered. So that would be a 6-unit apartment.
Okay.
With that makeup. So that was considered.
And why did you not propose that?
Well, so what happened there is the original application, the original idea for construction was to, I'll call it, dramatically modify the current building. And then when we looked at that, you couldn't just mirror what we were doing to the second floor. The second floor was actually going to be basically new. You were taking off the roof. And you couldn't mirror that on the first floor and keep the same building. So it came to a point where you had to knock the building down. And then once you knocked the building down, it was my belief that the township would prefer 1-bedroom units versus 2-bedroom units. It's also my belief that based upon the location, you're better off with 1-bedroom units, I'll call it professionals and adults living in the units, instead of having 2-bedroom, 2-baths, which create children and whatnot running on the front lawn, basically playing, their front lawn would be a state highway. So I didn't think it was like an appropriate necessarily spot or a nice spot for a family. And then it started to get too dense with the parking requirements as well. So I thought the 1-bedroom was more beneficial to everybody, not only the potential renters, but the location, as well as the neighborhood. So that was considered.
My next question is this. What is your inference when you say that some residents are opposed to your proposal because of the low-income housing?
When you say, what is my inference? I don't understand.
What is
the
your
question.
point? Why would you have a negative feeling about that?
Why would I have a negative feeling about I'm not following the question.
So you said earlier that you think some of these residents are opposed to your proposal because of the low-income housing. What is your point in saying that?
I was answering your question.
No, you weren't answering. I didn't mention anything about low-income housing. You brought it up.
I'd have to go back to listen. I thought I was
Well,
answering
let's
your
do
question.
that, because I would like to know why you brought it up and what your point is in making a derogatory statement about the residents who oppose this proposal. I would like to understand what your point is in that.
Can't answer your question.
Do you have a point?
Are you against the low-income housing component?
This is my time to ask you questions, sir.
Counselor? Mr. Sarro did ask you a question previously, and your response was that you had heard or hearsay of some of the complaints might refer to the 2 low-income housing.
Yes, and I understand that.
That you were.
My recollection is I was being responsive to her answer, or to her question.
Now she's asking you why. Why did you feel that that was a negative reaction? Why were you upset by that?
Okay, that's the question. I didn't understand your question. I apologize. So I believe, as the state has required, that we should have mixed units. I believe that there's a need for low-income housing, and I think that providing the opportunity for people who don't have high incomes to live in nice neighborhoods like Verona is a positive thing. And it
That's not the
upsets me
question.
if someone were to say that people with lesser income shouldn't have opportunities that others have.
That's not my question.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought that was the question.
The question is, why do you think that it is a negative for people to potentially feel opposition to this because of low-income housing being part of it? Is it your contention that if someone feels opposition to your plan because there is low-income housing there, that they have a negative feeling towards people who have lower incomes? Is that your contention?
I'm not following your question 100%, but
If someone doesn't want to live near low-income housing, is it your contention that they have a negative feeling about someone who has a low income?
if someone doesn't want to live near low-income housing,
Yes. Is it your contention that they have a negative feeling about a person who has a low income? Is that what you believe?
I'm not 100%
Okay,
following. I'm not
let me
100%
make this a
following
little
what you're
clearer
trying-
for you.
What you're trying to say.
In general, people who own a home, a house,
Yes.
that they paid for,
Yes.
if they do not want a low-income housing near where they live, it is not because they have a negative feeling about a low-income person. It is because their property values will decline. That is a tried and true experience, period. You are making a comment about a personal feeling about another person, and I take umbrage to that. I'm going to go back to another question because I want to be clear on what your response is.
Sure.
What would your hardship be were you to leave this building as it is?
What would my hardship be if I would?
Mr. Sarah, just for clarification, a use variance does not require a hardship. A C1 variance requires a hardship. This is a D variance. So, I mean, you're entitled to ask him any questions you want, but one of the justifications for a C1 variance would be a hardship, and it would be unusual topography, shape of the land, and things like that.
So what does a use variance require?
Well, a use variance requires the special reasons, a positive criteria, and a negative criteria.
Okay. So what would your positive criteria be, other than your profit?
As the engineer testified, the positive criteria is the inclusion of the affordable housing.
And how is that a positive criteria to the township of Verona?
The state of New Jersey requires the township of Verona and all townships to have.
Verona has already met all the requirements. Why do you want to exceed those requirements, causing detriment to the public good?
While Verona may have a plan to meet the requirements, there's not a guarantee that all of the developments will be developed. That's in the plan. Furthermore, every couple of years.
Why would you think it wouldn't?
Furthermore, every couple of years, there are new requirements. So they call them different rounds. So there's no.
Why would you think that it wouldn't, that Verona would not meet those requirements were it not for your units?
I didn't say that they wouldn't meet the requirements, not for my unit.
So why do you feel that you need to do that?
When you say, why do I feel I need to have the affordable units in there, in the building? It's required. If I wasn't required, I can tell you, if I was not required to have the affordable units, they wouldn't be there.
Why?
If you're required to have them
Why?
there. Why what?
Why wouldn't you put them in?
Because anytime you put affordable units in a project like this, it makes it much more difficult financially to meet the requirements, like pay for the building and all that stuff.
Of course.
Yeah.
As well as the fact that it reduces the property values surrounding the low-income housing, correct?
I don't know if I've never seen any studies on that, so I can't answer whether or not it would. I understand there are studies that say the opposite to what you're saying,
Counselor.
but I don't know.
Counselor, you have I'm sure, knowledge of the fact that low-income housing in areas of other houses around have reduced the property values. I'm sure you do.
I don't have knowledge of that.
You don't have any knowledge of that. Well, with all due respect, I'm very surprised. Okay, so there is no requirement to define a hardship in this particular proposal. Okay. Why wouldn't you just keep it as it is? What's the reason you want to do this, other than profit for yourself?
I think it's a good project.
Profit for yourself, yes?
Well, at the end of the day, there's profit for myself, but I think it's a good project.
But that is your overriding reason, correct? Is there another overriding reason other than profit for yourself?
Well, as you know, the project started off as a different project.
I just want to know one answer. Is there another reason that you're asking for this variance to build this property as your project for yourself? Is there another overriding reason other than profit for yourself?
Yeah, it's always been actually a dream of mine to own a piece of property and have tenants and apartments and things like that, and so this was a good opportunity to do so.
And your dream would be for profit for yourself, correct?
Any business has profit for myself, but that's
Is that the overriding reason?
Absolutely.
It's just
No.
a yes or no?
No, it's not.
What is the overriding reason?
I just explained to you.
The dream.
For some reason.
The dream is your overriding reason.
For some reason, I get pleasure out of helping people, and I think providing them housing and helping them is a good thing.
I have no more questions. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Cesaro.
Will I be able to read a statement later? Thank you.
I'm fine with standing. I've been sitting a lot, and I sat through 2 hours of the meeting on May 14th as well. Anthony Gardner, Verona resident, Vincent Place resident for over 12 years. I had a couple of different questions, but I want to start on something that was just discussed with you, Mr. Aloyo. I have a lot of concerns about you making a statement to the board based on what you heard through the grapevine about our main opposition being affordable housing units in this space.
If I can be clear, it wasn't about any of you.
Okay. Oh, well, thank you.
It was about our friends.
Thank you.
I have no idea who your friends are.
Thank you for clarifying. What also concerns me about that is we all attended the May 14th meeting and spent about 40 minutes talking to you about our concerns. Not once did we mention the affordable housing component to it. What we have concerns about, or what you've heard from the board repeatedly so far with questions to your planner/engineer, is the traffic concerns. So the question is, did the state require you to do a traffic and safety study that you're going to put 16 potential cars going out one lane onto Pompton Avenue that's already completely blocked up, blocking our entire street, where it's already dangerous to get off our street?
State did not require a traffic study.
Okay. For the applicant, are you willing to do a traffic study, since it's such a major concern for the residents of that street, to show that your project as proposed is not going to have an adverse public safety effect on our residents of our street and in our neighborhood?
No.
And why not?
If that was your only concern, then the answer would be yes, but I don't believe that that's your only concern.
Well, I think my neighbors will support me. I think that's our major concern, is the traffic and the public safety. And frankly, I think the zoning board should be extremely concerned about adding all of those cars onto that area where there's already accidents. You had to put up. All right, I'll save it for my statement for you all later. Thank you. Okay, so that was my first question. I'd like to know how you meet the standard around the covered lot, permeable versus impermeable. I did an addition a couple of years ago. I had to spend $3,000 on a rain garden to make sure that there was enough covered space, permeable versus impermeable, for storm water disposition and whatnot. How does redeveloping this little parcel putting all the things that you're envisioning for it and a parking lot, are you counting all the square footage of the unusable lot that goes up behind the properties in your calculation for total square footage?
Yes.
Okay, how is that allowed if it's
Well,
unusable square footage?
It's a pre-developed condition, that doesn't change. We are not improving or rectifying or modifying the panhandle, so to speak. We are allowed to a certain amount of discharge based on the present development. There is impervious coverage on the property already. There's a macadam driveway that services off of Pompton Avenue. There's a macadam driveway that services off of Vincent Place. There's a garage that's being eliminated as part of this. There's a structure that has 3 bedrooms in it. There's a patio on the property. There's sidewalks on the property. There's a macadam turnaround driveway that's on the property that's being eliminated. So it all had to be accounted for as part of the calculations as the amount of impervious coverage that is being addressed. We are handling that on site, and certainly there is an opportunity to provide direct discharge of surface water that's coming off of that panhandle that just permeates through the property out onto Pompton Avenue. We're going to collect that prior to entering the parking lot and handling it directly into the stormwater system. The runoff from the structure and the parking lot off of Vincent Place is taken internally. It's handled through the bio basin, which accommodates the amount of impervious coverage that will be developed there. So we meet that criteria.
I don't know how familiar you are with the existing situation on the street, but we already have a very significant stormwater drainage issue. Our street floods, in the winter it ices over, what you're going to be contributing with this project and the amount of units you're putting in is only going to add to those issues.
Well, I disagree because we're not directly discharging any surface water onto Vincent Place or onto the neighboring properties. It's being collected on site. It's being disposed of subterranean through a pipe system into the catch basins on Pompton Avenue, and certainly it's an improvement versus what's there now.
But isn't permeable versus impermeable part of the calculation of stormwater, whether or not you're channeling water onto the street?
Yes. We are not discharging any water onto the street.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Next question for you. Is the 2 affordable housing units the only positive criteria that allows you to, in your opinion, meet the legal standard to justify a land?
Yeah, that's statutory.
Land use.
The land use law stipulates right up front, if you're creating affordable housing units, that satisfies that criteria right off the top. If you had a church there, it would have been satisfied. If it was a school, it would have been satisfied. If they put a school there for 10, 12 kids, it's approved as a use that would be permitted outright. So it's certainly something that the state recognized, that there's a need for affordable housing. And the developer is planning to develop the property with 2 affordable units, which is 25% of the property. Normally, it usually takes only 20%, but in this instance, he's providing 2 units that are be affordable units, and it would meet the criteria that the state allows from the standpoint of granting the variance, the use variance.
My understanding from attorneys that we've spoken to is that the threshold for approval of a land use variance is very high. And that simply wouldn't be enough, in terms of meeting positive criteria, especially when it's clear that you're addressing or causing a lot of negative criteria in terms of the opposition from the members of the community on that street, with, I think, the main concerns around traffic and safety issues that this project will inevitably create.
Except the state, there's positive and negative, as we talked about before. The other criteria are such that the municipal land use law tells the planning board to develop a master plan. And the master plan says, you know what, in the Verona master plan, it says you need to create alternative housing. It says it right there. And this is being done on a positive basis, that there's alternative housing. It doesn't make any sense that a single-family house would ever be developed on this property. At one time, when I sat on the planning board, we were wrestling with how this property should be rezoned. It was probably the most difficult piece to come up with some alternative use in a single-family zone. At one time, it was a single-family zone. It doesn't make any sense. So they came up with this alternative zoning. It's an overlay zone that will allow alternative uses such as office and professional office and residential use. In this case, because of the amount of parking demand that's justified from the previous application, there was 7 parking spaces that had to be granted a variance. If we went back to the state says, no, you got to eliminate 4 spaces. We would have to come back to the board and said, look, we need 11 parking spaces. And I don't think that makes any sense in the developer's mind, is that it doesn't meet his needs from the standpoint of operating as an office and a mixed-use development that could justify that. So he come up with a plan that eliminates the need for parking. We meet the criteria for parking. It's the same criteria from the standpoint of ingress and egress into the property. The only thing that's changed is that the state has said to us, you got to eliminate 4 parking spaces to allow for queuing to take place on the property. It's the exact same location that was located before. We've eliminated one of the true driveway entrances onto Pompton Avenue, which is a substantial safety feature, and eliminates people that come into this site presently that back out onto Pompton Avenue. It doesn't make any sense. It's not a safe procedure. So now we have a safe means of ingress and egress. We can maintain queuing on the property. We've eliminated a safety hazard of a circular driveway. And I think in my standpoint that that's one of the criteria that the state has said to justify for the board to grant a variance, is that there's a safety improvement as a result of this development.
I think with all due respect, though, as Mr. Ryan pointed out, a mixed use in terms of office space and people coming and utilizing those spots, it would be at different times, right? Throughout the day, you'd have sort of an ebb and flow. Changing this completely to all residential, you're going to have everybody leaving potentially around the same time, right? Like most people go to school or go to work, 9 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning. I just can't see from a public safety standpoint how having multiple people in that building trying to leave at that time with that egress onto, I'm responding to his statement to me, his answer to me. So that's why I'm saying. All right, so I'll save it. Okay, I'll save it for the statement. My last question for Mr. Aloya, is this a project you'd want on your street if it was something that somebody else was proposing, and if so, why?
Well, I don't believe the project would actually fit on my street, because this project, it's a different street, right? This is being built on a state highway.
So would you want it on your street, if it could be?
If this project, no, I would not want it on my street. I don't think it fits in a 100% residential neighborhood. I think it fits where it is now, currently next to the Claridge Drive entrance. You have King's there. There's a bus stop in front of it. So I think this is the right location for a project like this or something similar.
I guess my answer to you would be that it is a residential street. Your project borders on Vincent Place.
100% recognize that.
Would impact the quality of life of everybody, and I don't think it fits in the location you're proposing.
And
Thank you.
And I certainly respect your opinion and your judgment in that. What I'm saying is, because it's on a state highway, I think it fits in the location that it is with a bus stop in front of it. You also have easy access to shopping and whatnot.
I would again encourage you to conduct a traffic study before you move forward with this plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Scott Primer, Verona. Because of the parking situation, I talked earlier in the first session how the law office and the 3 apartments, although we weren't happy about it, it worked a lot better because of the parking situation as far as people leaving. There wasn't that many lawyers and support staff at the location. And it worked a lot better than the proposal tonight. When the DOT permit application, when was the DOT permit application submitted to the state? Do you remember?
We made 3 separate applications in response to their comments, and it was about a 6-month.
Was it 6
basis.
months? Was it when you made the drawings?
It was after the approval was given from this board.
Why?
What do you mean, why?
Why? I mean, you've been a town engineer for 35 years?
Right.
And Mr. Aloy, you're the township attorney. I mean, I've watched countless audio of town meetings, and almost every, at least once a month, they're talking about curb cuts on a state road, a county road, lighting, Fairview Avenue. There's always something. We have to check with the state. We have to do with the state. There was just last week at the meeting, Verona wants to put in streetscape. And there was nothing even submitted to the state yet, nothing going on. And he already knew what traffic light was going to be replaced or upgraded before anything even happened. So I was just wondering, when was the permit submitted to the state? When was the denial letter received by the applicant? Do you know?
When you say the denial letter, you mean the state's response?
Yes.
So the state gave, I'll call it the state gave an approval. So what happened is we got an approval here, and then we went to the state. The state approved it after we made modifications to it. Those modifications, as the engineer indicated, were the requirement of removing a bunch of parking spots.
Yeah.
So then when we looked at it, we said, we don't think there's enough parking spot anymore. We already asked for a previous variance from the board, and now if we go back and say, hey, board, even more spots are eliminated, we don't know what the board's going to say, but our feeling was the project is no longer really all that viable because there's not enough parking. You're missing too much parking. So then I looked at it and said, hey, as I testified before, maybe I can mirror the top and the bottom because we already have that. Was told through the architect, no, it doesn't really work that way. You'd have to knock the whole building down. And then I said, all right, well, if we do something, what can we do? And then we came up with these plans.
You could have reduced the RSIS, right?
Well, excuse me.
I mean, if you reduce the footprint of the office,
right,
you could have reduced the parking spots, correct?
Well, then you would substantially change the plan. I mean,
Well,
we would still be.
Well, I mean, you got to do what you got to do.
Regardless of the size of the building, 4 spaces had to be eliminated by the DOT. The front 4 spaces, under any plan that was submitted. We were not going to get any approval from the state unless those 4 spaces were eliminated. So right from the get-go, whatever the board approved, they approved the variance of 7, it would have to go to 11, depending on the number of units in the building. The building criteria would not change. We would still not have sufficient parking. Under this application, we do have sufficient parking.
What I'm just trying to say, Mr. Helb, is, I'll answer what you just said, is you could have, the township, I should say, helped you reduce 7 parking spots. The state said, hey, you need 4 more. You could have did something on your end and just reduced the RSIS situation and made a smaller footprint. But I realize that you can do, what you want at your property. When you bought the property, Mr. Aloy, was it one-family home?
I don't know how it was being used. It's set up as a
No,
three-family.
I mean, it was when you bought it from the realtor, when you bought it, it was a one-family home?
Like I said, it's set up as a 3-family inside. I don't know how it was used. It was empty. Okay. There was no one living in there.
Okay, so it was listed as what? From the realtor?
I believe it was listed as like a mixed use.
Okay.
But that's just my recollection. I'm not 100% sure on that.
We talked a little bit, can I ask you about the garbage situation?
Sure.
Okay. I have a letter from the Township of Verona, and this is, I would imagine this is in everybody's packet. This is from Len Mendola, construction official. And he, he has on paragraph 5, as per municipal ordinance, waste, recycling, loading, and unloading activities shall occur on the premises and shall not interfere with normal municipal sidewalk and street operations. So that means a dumpster, right?
No,
No?
it's not required. There's no ordinance in the municipality that requires a dumpster for the property.
What?
He's suggesting if we use the dumpster, we would have to provide whatever is necessary on site, but we're not going to be utilizing a dumpster. We're entitled to provide refuse collection the same as any property in the municipality based on twice a week collection. We have to bring it out to the curb. We could bring it out to Pompton. Doesn't make any sense because it's not picked up on Pompton. It's picked up coincidentally at the same time other refuse is picked up on Vincent Place.
All right. So as per municipal ordinance, is there an ordinance on that?
There's an ordinance that says if you have a dumpster, there's certain standards. We're not providing a dumpster. We're not required to provide a dumpster.
Okay. And who's going to bring the cans in every?
As Mr. Lloyd indicated, the tenants would have to do that.
Okay, thank you. Something that is a little bit concerning to me, when I watched on the first application, I'll call it 1.0, there was an exhibit that was entered into, I guess, into the applicant's file to the planning Board of Adjustment for a 1986-87 Resolution 3-86. Do you remember that, Mr. Lloyd?
I do remember there was a resolution. I don't have it here with me, but yeah, I remember there was a previous approval by the board, I believe, on this property.
You had mentioned that you went before the board a year ago, and you said that there was already approval from the planning board to build commercial entity on the property.
So to be clear, and if I misspoke, I apologize, but I believe what you're referring to is when I purchased the property, the previous owner had received certain approvals.
Yeah.
And I believe in the record and that was the other application. That's not part of this application, but that was the other application that's not before the board today. But there was a previous approval, and I don't recall why. I thought it was relevant. Maybe the board asked a question, but we did have the previous approval, and we provided that as evidence in the last, on a different project, not this project, but the different project. That's correct.
Okay, so
I had never been before the board before. I've only owned the property for a year.
This was in 1986
or 88 or something, yeah.
I don't think you were back then. But it did give relevance to possibly the voting criteria from the board during that hearing. I just want to bring it up because in 1986, that case, Grant Cangola versus Planning Board Township of Borough of Verona. That's this case right here. And so you submitted to the board an approved plan that was basically null and void by a court of law. Mr. Held, were you on the planning board then?
I probably was on the planning board, but I think.
Do you recall this?
I think it went to the Board of Adjustment, not to the planning.
No, it went to the planning board.
I don't recall.
The reason why, excuse me, the reason why I'm mentioning this is because it didn't go to the Board of Adjustment. It went directly to the planning board. The planning board okayed Mr. Fernicola and that's who you bought the property from, correct?
That's correct.
Mr. Fernicola and the dentist, Mr. Zangali, and there was a situation where it was overturned by the court, and I just felt that people should know that that was not the truth, and,
Is there a question?
what's that?
Is there a question? Or
I asked him about if he knew about this.
So the answer is no.
Mr. Held, did you know about this?
I don't recall it. I mean, that's quite so many years ago.
Now, an 8-unit apartment, how would that have to go, Mr. Held? How would that, what zone would that have to be in legally?
Well, there's other zones in municipality that outright permit apartment use, A1, A2 zones.
Yes.
The Claridge houses are the A2 zoning district. They're immediately adjacent right next door. Claridge Drive is an A2 zone.
A1 and A1R would probably fit it, right?
I know
That's the low density as far as height. Do you know, on A1, do you know the approximate acreage that has to be required, the lot size?
That's probably because of the large properties, they're probably substantial acreage. I don't recall off the top of my head.
4 acres.
Okay.
On A1R, which is in a redevelopment zone, which is a lenient, that is an acre. So how high is, what is the lot size that you have?
It's 33,343 square feet.
So under an acre?
Under an acre.
Okay.
But keep in mind, it's a split lot zoning. Right now, part of the property is in an R1 zone, which allows for single-family development. And the planning board, as I said, at the time, wrestled with this property as to what could be utilized on the property. They decided to move it from an R1 district to allow some alternative use because they recognized that develop it as a residential single-family dwelling didn't make any sense. So they tried to come up with some alternative uses, which included the RMO zone, which includes some mixed use.
That's not in this area though, right? It's just commercial and R70, right?
It's an I believe it's an RMO zone, which allows for the mixed use. That's what we went before the board before, because as a conditional use, it was permitted, but we didn't have sufficient parking. So that's why it was required to have a use variance. We didn't meet the conditions of a conditional use.
So what part of the property is the RCMO zone?
The front part of the property, which is being developed here. The panhandle, so to speak, still is in the residential district, the R70 zoning district.
Okay. So what are the lot regulations for the property?
Can you be more specific, Mr. Bremer?
Yes, it says a split zone.
Well, it's not, there's no variance required for lot size. It stipulates, already meets the criteria. We're only seeking the one variance for the setback of the proposed dwelling. Right now, the building is non-conforming for a rear yard setback. It's still become non-conforming from the new building, being less of a variance than what presently exists. So there's only one variance being created. So there is, all the other criteria within the zoning district have been met.
So are you using the two zones, I'll say split zones, are you using them for all yard and bulk and other requirements?
Because it's one lot, we consider it as one lot. We count the entire square footage of that property. It's
Okay.
not a separate lot.
Okay, because according to the zoning, 150-5-1, paragraph F, for any lot which is located in more than one zone district, all yard, bulk, and other requirements shall be measured from the zone district boundary line and not the true lot line.
Well, our minimum requirements of 15,000 square feet. We have 33,000 square feet. So we meet the criteria.
You mentioned that you use the impervious coverage.
Right.
So you said you used that panhandle.
Absolutely. You have to include that as part of the property.
So which is which?
You have to include it. It's being developed, the drainage from that panhandle is being traversed our property. We have to address it from the standpoint so it doesn't increase the amount of off-site drainage onto Pompton Avenue. We had to address that, which we are. We're collecting it before it leaves our property.
Do you have to have 20% open space? Are we required?
We are required to have a landscape buffer. We have more than 20% open space because of the panhandle.
But you're not supposed to use that, right?
Yes, we can use that area. It's part of the lot.
Because she's not here today, but last week, or a year ago, she said, the panhandle is in your favor, but it shouldn't be in your favor, correct?
We're entitled, whether it's in our favor or not, we're entitled to utilize that portion of the property. It can be developed. It's undeveloped right now. There's a mixture of vegetation. There's some serious drainage issues that comes off from the adjoining properties on Vincent Place that contribute to that. There's some encroaching walls and fences into that area. There are trees within that area that are being maintained, and any dead trees will be removed as part of the project.
Okay. And the buffer zone in the rear of the property, how deep is that?
15 feet, that's what's required. We have to have a minimum of 15 feet separating this use from residential uses.
From your parking lot in the rear of the building to the next person's
To the existing
property.
houses on Vincent Place, there's a 15-foot buffer that's required.
That's not the rear of your property.
Well, it's not a rear, it means any yard that abuts the rear residential property. It's not just rear, it's side yard, it's front yard. It has to meet the criteria from the standpoint of providing the buffer that's required by ordinance.
Mr. Primer, I would advise you, you've had a lot of questions, and the board is very tolerant of questions, but it's now 10 o'clock.
Okay.
We usually stop our hearings at 11, and I think there may be some other people who would like
The
to.
other question I had is site access. This, code 150-8-3, site access is allowed only on Pompton Avenue. And you have site access on Vincent.
We have two accesses. We're eliminating one of the three that are there now. We are continuing to utilize it as a two-space access into the property off of Vincent. Right now, that is provided already. The use is an apartment use, and it's being provided off of Pompton as well as Vincent Place.
Mr. Carter, what are you referring to, please?
150-8-3, site access off Pompton.
That's from the Verona ordinance?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Help, can you show me where you are going to put the snow waste on the property?
Yeah, we looked at that. This improved plan allows more opportunities for that, both on the north side of the parking lot, between the last parking space and the head wall for the drainage. There's an opportunity for storage there. We made enough space that we can store some snow removal there, as well as the area where the 4 parking spaces were. On the north side, there were 3 spaces. That's being eliminated. That's now becoming an area that is vegetation, grass area, that we can collect and store snow at that point.
Again, I just want the traffic coming from Cedar Grove, coming south. You have the turn lane from Cedar Grove. You have staggered lights coming each way. If you want to make the left and there's a red light going north, you're not going anywhere. So to come into Vincent Place, make a U-turn, a jug handle. And again, the people coming in Vincent Place that live on Vincent Place are dashing through 2 lanes of traffic, buckling through there. And if somebody's making a U-turn or a K-turn, it's very dangerous. So I just wanted to let you be aware of that. A traffic survey should have been looked at And I don't know if it's required or if the town requires it, but I think that a traffic survey wasn't done because I don't think it would have been in your favor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just the ordinance that Mr. Primer had cited is not applicable to this case. It talks about mixed uses in a C2 zone. This would not be a mixed use. So there's no required access from Pompton Avenue.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public who has questions of the witness at this particular moment?
Hi, my name is James Fasanella. I'm a proud resident of Verona. I've been here for 20 years. This is my home. While I'm not a planner, an architect, or a lawyer, I am a father, a business owner, a coach, and a charity volunteer. I want to talk about parking. There's a lot going on about what we don't like and what we oppose and what our issue is. Our issues are pretty simple.
Mr. Fasanella.
We're focused on safety and parking.
Fasanella.
I'm getting to it right now, Mr. Chairman. So,
Thank you.
what were the number of the parking spots on the initial, I'll call it Project 1.0? How many parking spots did you have?
You're talking about the previous prop?
I'm calling it 1.0 to make it easy, but yeah, the previous, yes. How many parking spots?
There were 20 spots required. I'm sorry, 27 spots required.
Right.
There were 20 spots provided.
Okay, and then the state mandated you take away 4, right? I'm just trying to figure out what was the number that we ended up with that made you get to 2.0, but just enlighten me, how many spots were you looking at for 1.0, for the first initial?
There were 20 spots provided on the site.
Okay, but that's not what we got down to. You said 20 was going to be reduced, so was it going to be 16? I'm just trying to figure out what was the number?
Well, the previous application, the board approved, it was required at 27.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The application provided 20, so we're short 7 spaces. We got a
Okay.
variance of 7 spaces.
Right,
We went to the state says you have to eliminate 4 spaces.
right,
So we went from 20 to 16 spaces.
okay.
And
So-
at that point,
Yep,
we couldn't meet the criteria.
okay. So parking is a major issue on our street. And are you aware, directly across from that lot, there's a dentist directly across from the lot?
Yes.
Okay, do you know how many parking spaces they have?
I have not done a traffic count.
They have about 3, maybe 4, just to enlighten you. What they don't have, though, is they have a residential above, and they have a parking spot for them, 1 or 2 for them. So I just want to just kind of explain the situation and why we're here and why it's upsetting. What
Mr.
kind of,
Fasanella?
what kind of, hold on one second. What kind of user do you think is using a commercial? Just enlighten me. Who do you think's coming to the dentist? Who's going to visit? Like, who's going to go there? A patient, right? A patient's going to go there? What kind of person is going to use a residential? It's going to be a homeowner or a renter in your case, right?
It would be a rental unit for 1-bedroom rentals.
Okay. So do you see the difference in those utilizations? The point of what I'm getting to is that do you see that the impact, the negative impact that you're making by putting 8 single-family units in a small condensed area across from another place, another business? Do you see the impact and why we're upset? It isn't about affordable housing, because that's not why we're here.
No, I think, from the standpoint of other opportunities, Mr. Lloyd's indicated, is that there's a bus stop so that utilized by the public, that maybe somebody, that unit owners or unit renters will be utilizing that for mass transit.
With all due respect, this is New Jersey. You know, people drive. You're going to have 8 units, okay? How many parking spots are you going to have? I'm going to call this 2.0. How many parking spots are you going to have in the project 2.0?
You'll have 16 spaces.
Okay, 16 spaces. So that's great. So that breaks down to how many? 2 per unit, right, roughly? What happens when you're 2 per unit, when people come and they have guest family, a birthday, a barbecue, a cookout, God knows where, because they're not going to have any room to do any of that with the limited amount of space you're proposing for these units. Where are those people going to park? I'm just curious.
They'll park off-site if there's not sufficient parking on the property, just like residents on Vincent Place and other residential streets, when there's not sufficient on-site parking, they park on the street.
I know Mr. Ryan actually went and visited the site, and I commend you for doing that. I commend you for taking the U-turn through Pilgrim Shopping Center. That was great.
Do you know what kind of safety hazards, you know what kind of traffic this is going to cause? I know you're really sidestepping around the answer. This is a bad idea in terms of the amount of units you're proposing, the amount of parking, and the amount of issues it's causing safety-wise. Do you think this is a good project in terms of safety?
Absolutely.
Do you have any consideration for the safety of the project, for the neighborhood, for traffic, for children?
I think this project is a dramatic improvement over the previous submittals and what was previously utilized in the property.
I don't know about that. I want to just state for the record that the current property right now is not in disrepair. It was effectively and implicitly rented. They rented out the house and they rented out the garages, and we didn't have.
You will have an opportunity at the end of this hearing to make a statement where we would appreciate hearing those.
I'm getting to my next question. So we're talking a lot about the positive requirements of your project. What are the negative requirements again? I just wanted you to restate them for me.
Well, as I said, safety is one of the preeminent requirements, that we demonstrate safety.
That's a negative? That's a negative? I'm talking about the
That's one of
negative.
the criteria we have to satisfy, and that's why we have a state approval. From the standpoint, we have to improve the safety aspect of the
Hold on just one second. That's not my question, though. Maybe you're not hearing me. In getting these variances, right, you're looking at your positive requirements that you're contributing, and I know you love to taunt Mr. Ayola, the 2 affordable units, God bless you, right? But what are the negative impacts or negative requirements that you're causing by this project? What are they?
Well, we have to satisfy that we're not creating an adverse impact on the master plan or the zoning ordinance. We don't believe we are, because the master plan talks about in their goals and objectives of creating alternative housing. It's one of the major components of the Verona master plan, that alternative housing versus single-family housing and high-rises are provided in the community, and we're providing that at densities and concentrations that make some sense.
This question is for Mr. Ayola. Do you think you're being an attorney for the town? Does it create a conflict of interest at all in this project? I'm kind of curious about that.
No.
Interesting. Would you want to live in these units, Mr. Ayola? If this is built the way it is, you're gonna rent one if you had the need to do so? Would you rent one? Would you live here?
I would live there if I was a single person, yes, or if I didn't have a family before.
Good luck getting in and out. You're probably you're taking your life in your hands. Last question. Is there any consideration for revisiting Project 1.0?
No, because I don't believe there's adequate parking.
It's interesting. Do you think there's adequate parking for project number 2.0?
Yes, in fact, we're providing more parking than is required.
You're not. You're not. That's a fallacy. It's a lie. I just want to ask, what makes this project worthy of this committee's time and energy to give you these variances, to grant you these variances? What makes this worthy? Why this project? You're asking for a lot. You're asking to, move kind of heaven and earth to get this thing built when it doesn't belong where it is. But it's fine. What makes it worthy? Why should they consider this? Why should they approve the variances that you need to make this happen?
Well, we've already talked about my engineers and planners.
I just want to hear it again. That's all.
Criteria.
Yeah. What are they?
Well, we testified that the negative criteria has been satisfied from the standpoint the state has said affordable housing is essential to the state of New Jersey. Supreme Court has said that. So it's necessary that Verona provides affordable housing. We're demonstrating that satisfaction, and that demonstrates that through the criteria. And the goals and objectives of the Verona master plan that we spent many months developing talks about alternative housing, alternative affordable housing. And it's being provided as part of this application. And it has to be considered in neighborhoods that makes the most sense. It doesn't make sense to put an 8-unit apartment at the end of Vincent Place. It doesn't make any sense. On Pompton Avenue, it's a state highway. It's expected that there's mass transportation there. There's opportunities that renters can utilize mass transportation without you having to utilize motor vehicles. So there's other opportunities being presented as part of this application.
Does this project meet DOT approval?
DOT approval?
Department of Transportation, you had
Yeah, we
mentioned before.
received DOT approval.
Does this project, has a stormwater management survey been conducted at all?
We provided a stormwater management plan, yes.
I'd like to see that. And then environmental survey?
We have done a soil erosion and sediment control plan that's been approved by the Soil Erosion District. It's not necessary to be submitted to the state of New Jersey as a DEP. There's no stormwater management requirements that have to be submitted to the state. It's below the criteria that they would have a jurisdiction.
So while you've done those other studies and surveys, you neglected to complete a traffic survey. Why is that again?
It's not necessary. It wasn't demonstrated by the state. The state didn't require us. As part of an analysis accessing onto Pompton Avenue, they required certain things be done on the property, which we've done.
So does this committee require a traffic survey, Mr. Chairman? Would that be a question for you? Can I ask you a question? Do you require a traffic study for this project? It's considered a major project according to your engineer.
It is.
It is.
It is, and typically when we get traffic surveys.
Yep.
An engineer comes in and spends a good amount of time explaining to us the level of service is an F, and it's not going to get any better.
Okay.
We hear them on every intersection in town.
Okay. I'm good. My question is, this variance has to have a high bar, or the use variance has a high bar to meet. I don't think this meets the high bar, and I commend you all for asking your questions. I hope you continue to do so like Mr. Ryan has. I yield my time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who has questions of the applicant at this time and his engineer? Quick questions are good.
Name is Navneet Patel, 18 Vincent Place, Verona. Just a quick question on the garbage. So you're gonna put the 8 garbage cans on the street on Vincent Place, correct?
Well, whatever refuse cans is required would be placed on the street, yes.
Okay.
It's not necessarily 8, it could be 2, it could be 4, it could be 6.
With 8 family, how?
With twice a week collection, we don't anticipate it's gonna require 8. There's not 8 families, 8 one-bedroom units.
Okay. So you're gonna put that on the street, and then you have cars coming in and going, so isn't that gonna block their view?
No, it would not. It's gonna have to be put out at the curb, just like any homeowner
And
does.
what happens when there's a snow on the street? Then they're gonna put the garbage in the middle?
No, they put it where it's accessible to the garbage collection
Yeah,
company.
it's gonna be on the road.
If that's where it's necessary during the time of a snow event, they
Yeah,
would do that.
but that's blocking the traffic then.
Well, that's where if the neighborhood is subject to a snow event, that they have to put garbage cans or refuse cans out in the street for collection, they would do the same thing. It meets
That's
the
a
same
safety concern. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Patel. Does anyone else from the public have a quick question? Seeing none. Can we keep going? We're good. At this point, it would be appropriate to open it to the public for statements on this application. Perhaps I can give you a little help before we do this. This is the opportunity to make a statement on your positions to help the board make a decision. It's nice to have all the questions and to vent, but it's also important to state the facts that the board needs to make a decision. Missing items, things that weren't discussed, that type of item. We'd greatly appreciate it if you would come to the microphone and make a statement. We would really like if you would not belabor issues that previous people have made, simply agree or concur, so you can move it through efficiently. Okay? So, Mr. John is looking like he wants to do first.
Okay. I'm going to sit if you don't mind, because I have some papers I just want to go over. Good evening. I just want to let you guys know that I've been a long time. Your name, sir? My name is Samuel John, 4 Vincent Place, Verona. I'm very familiar with the property on 257 Pompton Avenue. I've lived on the street for 44 years. Okay, this, just to fill the board in on the 1986 lawsuit. There was a lawsuit brought by the entire block on 4 Vincent Place. I was not the owner at that time, but I was a resident. And basically what happened was and Mr. Helb was the engineer. I had attended all of those meetings at the town council when it was in 600, I believe it is 600 Bloomfield Avenue. And basically, what happened was the Board of Adjustment was bypassed, and the sale and the redevelopment plan went directly to the planning board. It was litigated. The residents had an attorney. His name, Mr. Massaro probably knows him. His name was Robert Gassion.
Still around, sure.
Okay. And he litigated on our behalf with, who's the owner at that time was John Zingali. He was the dentist, and his family lived on the second floor of that structure. It was sold to Fernicola, Eugene Fernicola, I believe is his first name. And then they wanted to redevelop the property. So it actually went to Newark Court, was resolved in our favor, and basically it stayed as a mixed-use property all those years. During the time that Mr. Fernicola owned the property, and I'm not speaking from actually witnessing anything, but it was a single-family home with a dental practice. I believe it was converted illegally inside to 2 or 3 units. That is my recollection, because tenants were in and out. Every year there was people were coming in and out of that building, and it was a different clientele. Okay, so I just want to give you a background on the property. Like I said, I've been there 44 years. I'm not a young man anymore, so. Okay, and with that, I'd like to just go over my statement. I respectfully ask that the project to construct 8 residential apartments at 257 Pompton Avenue not be granted the variances based on the Boswell Engineering report. Permitted use, minimum lot size, parking stall, and parking setback. My concern is that changing the zoning rules from C2 will enable the owner and the builder to build out the structure property and flip the property upon completion. That's a concern of mine. Leases can be broken, property can be sold or later transferred to new ownership and tenant situations. Once this project is completed, it leaves the planning board. God only knows where it's going to go. In the zoning, if the zoning is changed to an R residential and the property is allowed to be developed as an apartment building, then this change will effectively be in effect for the life of the structure. Typically, the life of an apartment building is anywhere between 50 to 100 years, depending on the materials used in the construction. Okay, this particular building is not a brick facade. It's a stick frame, from what I understand, or metal stud. By maintaining the C2 zoning, the ownership will have a stake and vested interest in the property as both a business enterprise and office-based mixed-use residential. I also have a concern about the parking overflow onto Vincent Place within the first at least 160 feet plus past the stop sign that's at the corner of Vincent and Pompton Avenue. Like my neighbors mentioned, a traffic pattern safety review should have been performed by the township. All of these additional vehicles exiting from Vincent Place and even directly from driveways onto Pompton Avenue will add additional traffic and safety concerns already in an already dangerous and high traffic area. Waste removal, garbage cans, that's going to be a concern because tenants are going to pick up the empty cans whenever when they return from work or what have you. In the meantime, when there's storms or wind, garbage cans are going to be flying across the road. I've helped my neighbors out in the past where I've seen garbage cans on the street, cars coming in and out, and just ignoring the garbage can that's on the road. I actually go pick it up and I bring it over to my neighbor's house. Water flow and stormwater management is a concern on Vincent Place. As observed during significant rainfalls, both the entrance to Vincent Place and Pompton Avenue can collect water in excess of 16 inches. I've seen it, and it's probably closer to 24. There's a professional building that's across the street from the corner of Vincent, and if you notice there, the stormwater drains cannot handle that volume of water. So cars are basically driving through it. The other concern is icing and algae is a concern on Vincent Place. Ice is migrating onto sidewalks and pooling and collecting during the freeze-thaw process during periods of snow. Even though the snow is removed by the township, icing on the roadway has become a hazard in driving in and out of driveways. My personal driveway, there's about 8 to 9 feet of ice that's migrating onto the sidewalk, onto my apron, and onto the sidewalk. I've called the DPW on numerous occasions and told them we need to get some cones out here because there's just too much ice. And they've responded and aggressively salted the street. But as you know, once it turns to ice, you're not going to get a thaw until the sun comes out. Also, this year, I've noticed that water was jetting off of the curbing area onto the sidewalk. I called the DPW and I said, can you get some people out here to put some cones or some caution tape? Nobody showed up. The water department did show up and noticed that the water was actually gushing out onto the street. So what I did was I personally had some caution tape. I put a couple of posts up and I put the caution tape so nobody would walk on the sidewalk. And I spent 2 days chopping up ice with an ice pick, with a ice pick, I guess it was. And it was in excess of 3 inches high on the sidewalk. So that's a major concern for us on the street. In closing, I would like to thank you in advance for the attention as you review this project in its entirety. I believe as a resident of Verona that this project will adversely affect the neighborhood and the quality of life for the residents of Vincent Place. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. John.
Thank you all for the opportunity to share our concerns. Again, I mentioned this earlier in my questioning for the applicant, Anthony Gardner. Oh, I introduced myself earlier. I didn't realize I had to do it each time. Sorry. So with all due respect, I do not think that this project meets the legal standard required to ensure the approval of a land use variance. I certainly don't think it meets the positive criteria. It certainly doesn't meet the negative criteria. To the contrary, the fact is, as you can see from all the neighborhood opposition to this project, the variance should not be granted without substantial detriment to the public good, without negatively impacting the neighborhood in numerous ways. Contrary to what Mr. Aloya said in terms of his rumor spreading that the main opposition here is because of some of these units being affordable housing. My neighbors and I have had conversations about this project over the last couple months since we learned about it. I don't recall ever hearing one of my neighbors even mention that. Where our attention has been focused has been on areas that you all pointed out in your questioning of the applicant around the traffic and safety implications of this project. I don't understand how such a small parcel, they could be proposing building 8 one-bedroom apartments in that tiny space. It's going to cause major issues. We can't hardly get off our street as it is with traffic backing up on Pompton past our intersection. So he's going to be introducing 16 cars potentially queuing up, leaving for school, leaving for work, all at the same time, trying to egress onto Pompton Avenue, trying to turn into their driveway from Pompton Avenue. As my neighbors mentioned, and I agree with 100%, all of the concerns related to Vincent Place, you know, I understand that technically this property is on Pompton Avenue because that's the front of it, but the bulk of the property is on Vincent Place, and the bulk of the negative impacts of this project impact Vincent Place significantly. All the issues that have been raised and discussed earlier, the additional parking when they have friends and neighbors and others coming over to visit them, parking on our street, people turning onto our street to K-turn to try to get back into their driveway. This is the wrong project for the site. If you haven't gone there to see it, please go and do a site visit so you can put in context what they're proposing. It's not the right fit for our neighborhood. It may be a state highway, but it's the neighborhood of Vincent Place and the adjacent streets in the area. So I would really encourage you, before you even consider voting on this, to require that the applicant complete a traffic study. We would like the opportunity as residents of this town to be able to have our own independent analysis of that traffic study before you move forward with approving this plan. Thank you. Next person, make sure you say your name again.
Scott Primer, Verona. I concur with my neighbors. I would just like to read, this is the master plan, land use element. Goals and objectives. Maintain the character of established residential neighborhoods in the township. Maintain the character. Develop, design, and bulk standards consistent with established residential areas that match Verona's architectural history. Preserve and protect the established primary residential character of the township by maintaining and improving neighborhood quality in existing residential areas without increasing housing density in these areas. Vincent Place, believe it or not, is an R70 zone. R70 zone is the second lowest density zone in the township. I believe Mr. Aloya's density zone is R60, which is more denser. But what I'm getting at is all along Pompton Avenue is the C2 district. And if you approve this tonight, even though each case is on its own merits, you set a precedent over the entire Pompton corridor. Are we going to have 8-unit apartments from Claridge Drive to New York Pizza? I hope not. This use variance is not like giving out popcorn in a theater. It's very difficult to prove. And to say I have 2 low-income housing is preposterous. By law, he's required to have 20%. That's the law. So for him to say, well, I'm giving 2, he's required to. Again, the detriment to our neighborhood worsens traffic. Proximity to 8 transit apartments will decrease property values. Overwhelm local parking on Vincent. I just would like to quote, I would like to quote, there was a great quote a year ago when the applicant was going for the mixed use, which was agreed upon. There's a quote by one member, and it says, I quote, "I would agree, this is probably the best configuration that we could permit in this particular location." One of you members stated that. And you were right. That was the best. This is the worst. This is the worst. And I had a little bit of discussion about what happened in 1986. And I feel that what was given to the town as far as Exhibit A1 was a little bit deceitful, false, and not without reprimand. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perma. Just yank it.
Anna Fusaro, F as in Frank, U-S-A-R-O. Gentlemen, ladies. My statement tonight is entitled, "The Overdevelopment of Suburbs." There's a crisis that is engulfing New Jersey, and it's crept its way into Verona. It is the overdevelopment of suburbs. Suburbs have grass and trees and houses with backyards, and neighborhoods with children playing at each other's houses, with backyard barbecues and lawns being mowed and sprinklers watering garden beds and pets running through their yards. I'm sure you all have a picture in your minds of this house that I've described. And it's your house, and it's my house, and it's our houses. Now, you, Mr. Aola, want to change that. There's a feel of Verona that existed when we all bought our houses here. Now you, Mr. Aola, want to change that. There is a place for more apartment buildings, and that place is not in our neighborhood. Suburbs have less people per square foot than urban areas do because there are houses, not apartment buildings, among those houses. You, Mr. Aola, want to fundamentally change Verona. You want to drop an apartment building among our houses. Although we do have a legal requirement to provide low-income housing in Verona that has led us to build more apartment buildings, why would we agree to a variance that builds more apartment buildings like this one if we don't have to? We don't need more low-income housing. We've met the requirement legally. My neighbors have argued the environmental and traffic negatives of this variance that are extremely compelling and should be seriously considered by this board. I'm here to say, please don't change the feel of Verona. This will substantially detriment the public good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Fusaro. Is there, now's the time.
James Fasanello, 20-year Verona resident. I want to thank you. I want to thank every one of the board members sitting here. And just being in these two meetings, I
really appreciate your attention to detail, your interest in learning about projects and problems, and your consideration and understanding how these changes, the variances that you approve, the projects you allow, impact our lives, our neighborhood. Our objection to this project isn't rooted in meanness or evil or anything other than attaining our Verona dream. I'm someone that grew up in Trenton, of all places, so I know all about affordable housing and a few other things, including public assistance and things I don't want to get too much into. So I have no objection to someone getting a break in life. My objection is, where does this break happen? Where does this fit in? Quite frankly, it doesn't fit here. It doesn't fit in this little tiny lot with these 8 units. And I implore you, if like Mr. Ryan has done so already, if you haven't done so yet, drive by it. Drive by, you all go to King's, the property's right there. It's a block away from King's. There are a lot of traffic lights. Pompton Avenue is 2 traffic lanes each way. We know Verona's congested. I get it. I get it. I do. But putting this unit, this monstrosity, is the metaphoric equivalent of sticking a square peg in a round hole. That's all I can think of. It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. It's going to cause, not only undue harm to our town, but more specifically to our community. I like opportunities. I'm a true capitalist. I'm happy that Mr. Lloyd bought the property. I do disagree that the property is in the current standard is, what was the word he used before? That it's in bad shape. People were just living there. It's going to be in worse shape if we build this thing and it doesn't fit. I don't think we need this project. I know this project is going to cause harm to the town and the community, and quite frankly, we're going to be less safe. Why are we going to be less safe? Our street is little. It's a cul-de-sac. It's a dead-end street. It's a lot of U-turns. People miss Claridge, or they don't know where they're going. Some people just want to just drive around. So we have a lot of people that already make silly driving errors. So listening to Mr. Help saying that we're going to eliminate a driveway, it's going to improve the traffic flow. I'm sorry, sir, but that's a blatant lie, or just ignorance. I don't know which one. It's ignorant because he doesn't live there. He doesn't know what's going on. I have a dentist next to me. He's got parking spots. It's a daytime routine. That makes sense. Doing a business on the bottom and 2-3 units on top, that makes sense. That's why I like Mr. Lloyd's Project 1.0. I didn't even come to this meeting. When I came to the meeting is when I realized what a disaster it's going to be with 8 units. And again, I'm happy you brought the unit down, the project, the house. I really am. I don't think what you're intending to do is the right fit for where it is. And that's why I implore you, when I was asking the questions before, would you consider 1.0? Would you consider going back to business on the bottom, apartments on top? That's what we need. It's not that we're mean. That's what fits. That's what works. Why go with some crazy design and all this crazy hullabaloo when we had something that works? It used to be a business before, it was a dental office. They had apartments on the top. Now it went to residential. They have 3 garages. The amount of traffic that causes is nothing compared to this. Think about the number of, I call them belly buttons or heads, that would be in the unit now if it was rented. And even with the garages having capacity or activity, it's nothing. You're talking about a few people in the house, maybe 1 or 2 in the driveway. Now we're not only doubling, we're quite frankly tripling or quadrupling that activity. And the reason why it's harmful is that Pompton Avenue is unkind. I've seen a lot of bad things on Pompton Avenue. I see a lot of people making ugly gestures. A lot of bad things happen every time you go up and down the road. You're just going to ratchet that up. You're going to put this building in there, right? If you approve it, which I implore you not to, you're going to give them these variances, and then what's going to happen is you're going to incite chaos. You're going to have 16 people coming in and out. Probably nobody lives alone. Quite frankly, no one can afford to live with just one person, so it'll probably be 2 or 3 people. So just do the math and figure out those numbers. But the safety really comes with the amount of activity and then the overflow from that activity. Now keep in mind, the dentist is very busy. He does really well. I live right next door to him. And he has people that park. But the difference between commercial versus residential is they leave. They're there, I'm getting my teeth cleaned. I don't go there, but if I did, I'd be parking there for a few hours, an hour or 2, and I leave. If I live there, how long am I going to be there for? I live there. I could stay there all day, all night, for all week. That's what we're talking about. That's what matters here. It's not about anything mean or insensitive, and I'm sorry if I'm upset or passionate. I have 2 kids. I think about all the other families that are on our blocks that walk their kids up and down the street. We have young kids in strollers. The U-turns are a problem. The traffic flow and the parking are a problem. We're not set up for that. This spot, this space, this property is not set up for what he wants to put in. This is not the spot. Do what it's intended to do for you. You approved it for mixed use. Stay with mixed use. Do the business on the bottom. Do 2 or 3 units on top. Keep it at that. I'm sorry you don't make as much money. I really am. I feel bad for you. Sell it. The values are up. You'll make more money doing that. Don't do this project. This project is the wrong thing. And I know you believe that, and I know you see that. I can tell by the questions. So it's why, quite frankly, this project is not a good fit. I think that we need to just nip it in the bud now. If we go back to 1.0, we can talk about it. But otherwise, hard no. It's not going to fit, and I'm adamantly against it. But not for the reasons that were stated earlier, just because I like it here. I like the people. I like the community. I do as much as I can for the community in the town. And I just don't think that this is what we need right now for this space. And I really, really thank you for your time and interest in this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fasano.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Are you accepting questions?
Yeah.
I'm going to have a question for the attorney also, an odd question, but this is a question. You're happy with the building the way it is currently?
Yeah, compared to what you want to propose, absolutely, 100%, yes, actually, yes.
So it's currently set up as a 3-family. Would you be happy if it was a 3-family?
If you get rid of your 8-unit monstrosity and 16 parking spots, absolutely. Well, really, the thing that I like is I like business and mixed use, and that is what I have right next door, and it works because of daytime and night, day and evening opportunity parking-wise. I was trying to get you back to that. I kept asking.
I understand what you're saying, but I'm saying right now the house, the property's set up, it's not used as, but it's set up as a 3-family. Would you be happy if it was a 3-family? It's staying exactly the way it is now.
3-family? I have to see the plan, okay?
Well, the plan is it's exact. Nothing's changing.
3-family would be better than 8 one-bedroom apartment units.
It's not currently zoned.
Sorry.
I would say, if we could just keep that,
Sorry.
you asked for a question.
So I asked the question.
I like you. I know who you are. We don't know each other personally, and I want you to do well. I just think what you're proposing, it just doesn't fit.
I understand that.
Sorry.
This is not supposed to be part of the application.
Sorry.
You asked a question.
So I asked the question, he's answered, so my question's finished. Can I ask the question of the board attorney?
Sure.
Hypothetically speaking, if I asked you to amend my application currently that you're considering to a 3-family, is that allowed?
That is allowed.
And nothing would change, so you currently have the current site plan, nothing on the site would currently change. The house that's there would be a 3-family.
Testify, you would have to reintroduce testimony as to because you would need a variance, right? You would need.
Well, I was asking for a variance before for it to be all residential. Instead of 8 units, it's now 3 units.
Well, you'd still have to, you'd have to introduce testimony with regard to the appropriateness of a 3-unit dwelling. You would not have any site plan approval. My answer is I don't think you could do that this evening. I think you could carry for one night and then, kind of button up what you're always allowed to amend an application during the proceeding.
Okay, we could proceed. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public who would like to make a statement about this application? Having heard that little discussion? No retreads. Sorry.
I've changed my name now.
That's only for innocence.
Anna Fusaro, F as in Frank, USARO. I would like to answer the question that Mr. Aloya asked a moment ago. Is that okay?
I'm okay with it as the chairman.
Okay. I know you're trying to be a little informal. I think we'd have to see the plan because, James kind of turned around and looked at us all and were
Excuse me,
condescending.
Mr. Chairman, this is not appropriate. I mean, I
Okay.
understand, right, it's just not
Okay,
appropriate
that's
from a...
fine.
Right, okay, thank you.
Lawyers. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to make a statement about this application?
Emphasis on the oath.
Yes. Seeing none, I would close the public portion of the application. And thank you very much for coming, because we have had many applications that this board has considered, and there has been no one in the audience. And we've had applications to put 10 residential units into one piece of property on Grove Avenue. We have had all kinds of split applications to enlarge houses across the entire width of the property. And still, we've had very few people come to participate. So from our perspective, we appreciate having public input at our hearings. And at this point, I would normally say, council, if you wanted to make a summary statement before we go to board deliberation, but it sounds as though we may be working out an extension to...
I'll just waive the closing, and I mean, I think the board knows our position. I think this is a beneficial plan. We've met the criteria, negative and positive. I understand the concerns from the residents in the neighborhood. But we've met all the criteria, and I respectfully think the board should approve the plan.
All right, then that said, I would open it up to board deliberation and ask for some input from my colleagues. Who'd like to go first?
You can look at me as usual. Okay, I'll kick it off. All right. You know, this is a very challenging application in my mind because of the, it's sort of, once again, a very unique area in town. I think a lot of us would agree to that. Because you have a residential block, I'm going to put it that way, that abuts a state highway. And we don't have too many, situations that I've come across, and I've lived in the town since 1985. Not as much as some of you, but longer than some of you. The other thing I just wanted to clarify, some things that I think maybe need clarification. The affordable housing component only kicks in if the building is 5 residents or more. The 20% requirement is not required if it's less than that, okay? So my problem, and I think I've made my position clear by the questions that I've asked, quite frankly, is that we are taking what I still consider primarily a residential area, okay, and overdeveloping it by putting 8 units in there. The idea of the fact that, let's say theoretically, if you wanted to, I don't have any problem with putting 1, 2, or 3 bedroom units in, because that's more in character with the suburban nature of Verona. I think as some of the people pointed out, I'm sure there are many families on the block, so if we had more families that came in, I don't think there would be a great objection to that, okay? It seems that as far as the 2 affordable housing units being the threshold, well, to me, if you're saying that, then that's a very admirable quality, given the fact that, to me, you wouldn't be changing the character of the neighborhood. And I will modestly say I've been involved in the affordable housing issue, as many of you know, in Verona, since time immemorial. And the only round I haven't been involved in is the last one. As a participant, I've certainly followed it, and I followed the direction that the council has taken, and primarily, the development has been along the Bloomfield area corridor, on a busy street, and putting apartment buildings up there. That's been the goal, because Mr. Held keeps referring to the master plan. And Verona is one of the few towns, and I will say that has basically complied, the suburban towns. We have not gone through legal proceedings. We have not incurred gross legal fees by opposing any development that included affordable housing. I've been criticized because I approved any 100% affordable housing development. So I just want to make it clear, my problem also is not with affordable housing. It's with the size of the development that you are essentially putting on a residential street. I will say also, in terms of our own procedures, I think Mr. Gardner, somebody pointed out, we have asked for traffic studies on developments that have been on, like Bloomfield Avenue and on major thoroughfares. I don't know whether we dropped the ball on this, Mr. Chairman, but I mean, they don't have to do it, I guess, but anecdotally, I do my own traffic studies anytime these things come up, and so I share the concerns that some of the residents have, just in terms of traffic flow in that area. But my problem is just changing the zone was put there, I think for a good reason. And while you're not necessarily bound by a 1986 court ruling, I think that sort of backs up their argument that, it's been there for a long time. It's got a footprint. I don't think the property is so totally deteriorated that it couldn't be rehabilitated, and we couldn't keep the zone there. I get very concerned, and somebody also pointed this out, about by us de facto change authorized variances that change the intent of the original zoning. And I know I constantly hear, oh, well, you're not setting a precedent. Yes, we are, because we've all had attorneys come over here and then cite decisions that we've made where they're saying there is precedent being set. And so to me, the threshold has to be that you can't develop this property accordance to the zoning requirement, with a commercial and a residential aspect. And I just don't think this application meets that threshold. And that's basically what I have to say.
Thank you, John. Thoughts from the other direction? Well, I mean, the other direction from me.
I agree a lot. I think the change of use is somewhat fine with me. It's the program on the site that's too much. It's the reason that the parking's, overhanging the allowable, size. It's just too big. That's what I have.
And I'm sort of in agreement with you. I think I am okay with like a family complex here. I shouldn't say complex, but something. Again, we're trying to squeeze a lot into a small space. Size, I think, is a concern. And then when you add the size to it, when you have 4 different roads coming in at often all the same sort of location, it does become a little concerning to me with that much potential of people, vehicles coming in at the same location.
All right. I know there was talk of the traffic studies. Well, just from my experience, hearing some of the traffic experts, seeing some of the traffic studies, I would say that this project, the traffic study would find that the impact is de minimis, that it's 8 units. You would have someone, 8 cars leaving at most at the busiest time, in the morning, 8 cars coming in at the evening. A lot of times when we see traffic studies, they don't mirror or take into account kind of the reality of the local knowledge that we understand that there's queuing, backing up in lights, so on and so forth. Just from an education perspective, yes, the board can say it would be very wise to have a traffic study. In this instance, I just don't think that's necessary. Having said all of that, I do have a number of concerns with the project that was presented. I do think that the garbage is going to be an issue, relying on the tenants in the kind of building. You might have 1 or 2 tenants that ultimately take the garbage out, bring it in, but in essence, over time, I'm sure a person's going to forget, why am I the only one dragging 8 or 6 or 4, whatever, bins out to the curb, so on and so forth. So I do think that would be a nuisance. The number of parking spots themselves, I think for the most part would be okay to meet the needs without causing any issues. Yes, some of the residents might have some people over, celebrate different events, so on and so forth. So I think at times there might be some issues that people need to park on Vincent Place. But I guess it's even in general with that, I know that there's going to be delivery trucks or food delivery, Amazon, that pull into that parking lot. Those spaces are going to be full, and it's going to be hard or difficult for them to make that U-turn, and ultimately they'll be reversing back out onto Pompton. And I do think there'll be a safety issue from that regard. I think with the location of the building, I would be a lot more inclined if there was less of a footprint. Mixed use would be great, as this board previously approved with the professional office and a lower number of units. Shrinking the footprint is also another option as well that can help mitigate some of these issues, to allow for mitigation of some of the parking and safety concerns from that regard. I do appreciate as the chairman said, the public coming out and voicing their opinions. That is something as a board we do take into consideration to get a feel for what the public wants and their thoughts and feelings.
Yeah, and just to echo, I mean, the level of discussion around site operation or property operation has been extensive. And in other discussions, other situations, it's been steadily, I think, qualmed with discussions around property management, and we just haven't had that level of comfort here. And I think that if I had heard some stability around that, and I guess it's just that there's a level of concern around that lack of experience of that property management component. It's between waste, it's between utilization, it's between management of goods and delivery, packages, it's all of this. At one point they might arrive on Vincent, but then it's no site access on Vincent, and it's the back and forth of just the site operation that continues to be a concern. And if potentially that were to be, addressed through like a property management plan, or had been addressed through a property management plan or a property management operator, then potentially that would have, calmed some of this, because again, the site utilization is just different, which again also goes to this, where we went from one situation where we're not bringing up the past approval, we're not bringing up past discussions, yet a lot of discussion hinged around this state DOT approval, which was predicated on a past, variance that was brought into play. At one point, a line item was brought in from something that, again, I didn't see, and then all of a sudden we kind of walked over the point that we're removing a no left turn, which to me, I understand. I know I understand, what was brought up, which is, you're right. It probably is going to be de minimis in terms of the load. I don't think it's going to be a load concern. For me, it's concern of even just one vehicle making that left turn into that site. It's the type of utilization that to me is a concern of the kind of in and out. And that's where, other discussions for me is also just, I appreciate the fact that, you brought up, that was brought up in terms of, the fire experience, but, me too, having had that kind of USAR experience, being an EVOC, certified, or emergency vehicle operator, it's just envisioning this site, because we, on one hand, are dismissing the previous one, but on the other hand, not requesting the movement, the flow, and again, not saying that I don't think it's going to be a heavy utilization. I'm on with you with that, but not seeing that with this new site, or this site specifically. That's where my discomfort kind of comes to play. With things that we've seen before in other requests and other other facilities. That's been the challenge for me. And I asked that question specifically. It was brought up by our engineers specifically. Emergency vehicle ingress, snow, so on and so forth. Delivery vehicles. It was blatantly asked, and it's just this barrel forward that we got in this application. It's good. It's good. It's good. It's good. And we asked these questions specifically. And I know that we weren't supposed to use the previous application, but then we referred back to a DOT from the previous one. So it's either in or out. So that's where I'm at. Those are the challenges that I'm having.
I tend to agree with my colleagues as far as what they've said. I also made a note here of two of the items that were brought up by residents about maintaining the character of the neighborhood. And my bigger concern is the increase, the jump in density from R70 to 8 units. I also personally believe that single-family or one-bedroom units are probably going to attract young professionals, et cetera, but it's also probably going to attract people who are more transient in nature. They'll be moving into houses someplace, hopefully in Verona, but there's going to be a turnover that will either result in a lack of, or will either be committed to Verona or off someplace else, as opposed to houses that people purchase and make that commitment to. I favor also the fact that we only have we might have 4 C2 zones in the entire town, and I like the idea of the mixed use in this particular area because it's a transitional use from a residential block to a commercial area. But I am probably most uncomfortable with the jump in density. And I believe that the applicant has done an excellent job in providing details of the project, the construction, et cetera. Perhaps not enough support to justify a use variance as to why we should change how the property is used. We can see how the property is laid out, just not, they didn't take it the next step. From what I'm hearing,
Chairman?
Yes, sir, Council.
Am I allowed to request that the board carry the application so I can meet with the neighbors to potentially amend it for the next meeting?
Counsel?
Sure. There hasn't been a vote. I mean, we certainly can either withdraw or ask that the vote be delayed, and then perhaps there'd be I mean, technically, the application has been closed, but this board has in the past, given some liberties to applicants in situations like this. I mean, it doesn't mean that the board's opinion is going to change. I mean, but,
Well, the board's opinion isn't going to change
As the application
as this
stands.
application
Right,
as it
right.
stands now.
Right.
The question I have is if we permit the applicant to amend the application, at what point do we resume deliberation? Is this just something that the board is going to consider?
No, I
Or
think
do
there
we
would have
go-
to be, testimony.
Testimony?
There would have to be testimony in support of any modification, unless it were just simply, okay, I'm not going to have 8 units, I'm going to have 6, and I'm just hypothetically saying that, then I don't think there would have to be, further testimony.
If it helps your decision, I kind of led to it before. My plan would be to speak to the neighbors. I've heard what they've had to say. And if I can get them to a spot where they're happy, I would come back to the board. And frankly, if I can't get them to a spot where they're happy, I'm going to withdraw my application, leave the property as it is, and someone else can deal with it.
I mean, the board has latitude, the chair has latitude. There certainly can ask to adjourn the application at this point and, to see what happens in the interim. It's certainly permissible to do that. Depending on what the applicant desires, I guess would determine whether the board would permit it, and what would be required. So, I mean, if you wanted to come in with building the Claridge house, then you'd say, no, that's an entirely different application.
But although I think Mr. Aloya is trying to make a good faith effort to meet the concerns that have been expressed by the people who've been in opposition to this current application.
So he certainly has the right to ask.
So I just, from my own perspective, I would not object to carrying the application. But, Mr. Becerra, I just had a point of clarity for me. On the prior application that we approved, okay, was that because the state didn't permit the execution of it, if I can say that? Did that application actually get formally closed out, or is it just sort of hang?
The post-approval conditions weren't met, so it would die its own death.
Oh, it just died a natural death, okay. Because that did come up with the discussion on numerous occasions with the residents.
It would die its own death.
And they, in the context, and I'm just trying to provide this, I think Mr. Aloya got this, they didn't have, a lot of them didn't have a problem with the first plan, okay? They may have had a problem, but they understood that Mr. Aloya has to be allowed to do something with the property, okay? So it's just a matter of, coming to a hopefully a consensus or a compromise, as to what would satisfy Mr. Aloya's needs and the needs of the residents surrounding the property.
So in light of Mr. Aloya's request, or seemingly request, to adjourn this application to permit him an opportunity to discuss with the residents what would be an acceptable project, to make a determination if he can provide us with the details of a modification to his application or withdraw it. And if he does provide a modification to his application, he would come back before this board. We would hear the application, the modifications preferably, and continue. The public would have an opportunity to ask questions and make statements, and then we would pick up with our deliberation of the modifications. Does that work for everybody?
Yeah, I think that it would be reasonable, and Mr. Chairman, if I need to make a motion to approve the continuance, Do we need a motion for that, Greg, or is that the decision of the chair? Do we
It
need a
can't
vote?
hurt that,
Okay.
you know, he requested it be granted and
I
make
would-
sure that the board approves.
I would make a mo-
And I was going to, and we would, summer's really not good for us. Where are we looking? We're at August to September?
Yeah, July already has 4. Would July be enough time? Anyway, if you were gonna come to us on,
Yes.
Are they 4 Cs?
We have an appeal for the, appeal of use, an addition, and approval on the deck and patio that's existing.
Are there any big development ones that we're still not
Carry it
coming
to
up?
the next meeting?
Barry?
Yeah.
And you'll grant all the waivers of time?
Yeah, no, that's a
Thank
biggie.
you.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, let's take a vote on what I said.
I make a motion to approve the chairman's suggestion regarding giving Mr. Aloya a continuance.
Okay.
Second motion.
We have a motion and a second to continue. Can we have a roll call vote for that, just for the record? Oh, Scott's still sitting here.
Mr. Tully?
Yes.
Dr. Cordes? Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Mathewson?
Yes.
Vice Chair Weston?
Yes.
Chair McGinley?
Yes.
Thank you.
That's it will be carried without further notice to our next meeting. Our next regularly scheduled meeting is July
July
9th.
9th. July 9th? Yeah.
That work? Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
I do believe we have no reason to go to an executive session. Anybody disagree with that?
No.
No.
I make a motion, Mr. Chair, to adjourn the meeting.
All right. This room Saturday night for the big TV. See the next. All right. We're adjourned. All right.